3000.
What are you doing? My name is Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by a musician, a rapper, a writer, an artist. Enfa, thanks for coming, man.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Maloney.
Man, you're another Peninsula resident now, so it's awesome to get these creative people that have moved down here on the show and create a bit of a community down this way, man.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, moving down this way, it's how do I say it? I always wanted to raise kids on the beach. I didn't know what beach it would be, but nevertheless, I managed to get there, and it's been great. There is a really cool community, a lot of artists, a lot of cool creatives. It's been great.
And it has changed. I've only been down here 2.5 years, but you can already sort of see a change and more people coming from the city and more of a creative vibe. It's cool. We're watching it happen.
Yeah, very much, very much. It's interesting. There's an element down this way that's still mad, like 80s, 90s Australia.
For sure. No, there's people. Someone said to me the other day when I was getting a coffee, "Are you local?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been here 2.5 years." She's like, "I've been here 13 years and people are saying I'm not local." I'm like, how long does it take to earn your stripes down at this part of the world?
Yeah, it's like, no, I'm not local. You're welcome.
That's it. All right, man. So you've got such a long catalogue of music and interesting life so far, so it's going to be a great chat. Let's jump in, man. Growing up, I know that you didn't grow up in Melbourne, but you grew up in Perth, I believe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I grew up in Perth. It's a crazy backstory. I'll save it for the book. But basically, when I was nearly 4, my mother brought my brother and I to Australia quite suddenly. She's Australian. Mm-hmm. I was born in London. I was like, Brompton Road, Chelsea. Yeah. Probably grew up there, end up playing for Chelsea and become like a UK rapper, something like, maybe an equivalent or nothing at all, But yeah, so grew up in Perth, up in the hills, area called Kalamunda, Gooseberry Hill. It's really beautiful.
Yep.
It's kind of like, I would equivalate anyway, that word it to somewhere like a sassafras type thing.
Yep.
Up there, sort of like that. So a lot of arty people. My mother was an artist. She was a painter, and she lectured at like university and TAFE, sort of similar places I've ended up working. Yep. And the hills was the space. We ran around. We rode bikes barefoot. Used to get my little jeans caught in my bike chain.
Different to London, though, man.
Yeah. Although I was so in that place. I mean, I remember from so young walking around Shepherd's Bush markets. I remember this interesting smell in the air, not knowing what weed was yet. I remember the restaurant. I remember riding my bike. I remember all kinds of stuff around that area. So it was a very different world, but kids are still kids. Yeah. They still want to do those things.
Shepherd's Bush has a rather Australian representation now. Was it like that back then?
Don't know. Couldn't say. I don't think that really kicked off until the 90s.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think. Same with Clapham and all that.
Yeah, it's very Australian now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be where they just gravitate towards.
Yeah.
It's like St Kilda with the Irish and English people.
Yeah, and the same with Coogee in Sydney.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess people find each other. I've always been someone when I travel, I don't really want to be amongst my peeps.
I agree.
As weird as that is, like even when I was living in London, I was gigging a lot. I never advertised in any Australian publications. Uh-huh. I was just playing underground London spots. Yeah. So my journey is not really seen. There's one little video I think on YouTube that captures it, where we're performing a song called Twist the Kids out in East London, and it's just mental, and that's what we were sort of doing, and it was a cool time. But yeah, I've always been like that. If I travel around, I'm always trying to find local. I think that's the beautiful thing about music. It's allowed me to, I don't mean to quote, but even I have to quote him. Suffer said, "Thanks to hip hop, I go to bed in every state."
Yeah.
And the amount of places I've been to and couches I've slept on, and the immediate immersion into a city's culture because of music. Yeah. So like go to Copenhagen, you can walk around and go, "Oh, it's nice, Copenhagen, everyone's beautiful." But because I knew a DJ and different things and we're just playing in all the right spots, suddenly you get the experience. You go to LA and you just go to Sunset Boulevard and it's the same thing, but once you're doing, people know you're doing music, suddenly you're hanging with the kids who grew up, went to LA high school or whatever it's called, and I'm at a house party and all of the Mars Volta roll in, that kind of stuff. Like, it's a whole different world, and I think music's beautiful for that because it's where you get to really find a place's true essence.
For sure. Instant camaraderie wherever you go, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think, growing up in the hills in Perth, there was no one that represented or looked like me and my older brother Kabar. Big shout outs to Kabar. He's the reason I'm anything. He's a genius kid, and I was lucky to have him as a big brother, and I still am. But his love, his disdain, I'll be honest, his disdain for all things Aussie, because of what he experienced, it was disgusting. Like,
just racism.
Oh, crazy stuff. And it's wild because that stuff really affected him. Like, I always wondered, okay, here's a crazy story. A friend of mine, Kiara, was telling me recently. She's a girl, a woman now, but a girl we kind of grew up with. Her parents were good friends with my mum. And Kiara goes to me, I don't know why we're going straight to this subject, but we start talking about different things because she has a son who's similar mix to myself. And she goes, we're talking about racial stuff. She goes, the first time I ever experienced what racism was, I was hanging with you guys. And I was like, oh, yeah, sounds right. She goes, no, but you were like 4. I was like, oh. And she goes, and your brother would have been 9 or 10, and she would have been 8. She goes, you remember that? She goes, remember that fucking neighbor? I had this fucking neighbor. He was just down the street, and he came out and started yelling all these expletives at us as kids, at you, your brother, and at me for being with you. And then he set his German Shepherd on us.
What?
Yeah. And so she goes, we ran up the tree, and I all my youth, I couldn't remember why I'd always been petrified of dogs, any size, just totally freaked out. And I
got PTSD from that.
Yeah, it all came back. And so I was really good, and I've always been good at overlooking trauma, whereas for my bro, things sink. He's very, he doesn't do mean things, but when he experiences it, he holds and it stays. So he just didn't like it. People weren't ready for him. He was too big. He was too just ahead. Too smart, too strong, too athletic, too questioning, so African, so our father's son. And so he has had a really hard time. And so trying to fit in, trying to understand what it was. I mean, he even loved rock, but stopped listening to rock because it was associated with more that kind of crowd that usually comes with rock in that era. And so he started seeing album covers and came home one day, like we had a few records, Bob Marley records, Count Basie, a couple of Quincy Jones albums, rest in peace to all, and Manu Dibango, and that was what we had. But then one day he came home with a hip-hop record, and it was just like this fresh kid on the front, and we're like, what is this? It reminded us of Musical Youth. The group who sang Past the Dachi Pande Left. We used to play all those tapes and sing along and record ourselves on a little dictaphone we had and sing songs and mess around. But when he came home with that,
what record was it?
I'm pretty sure, so this would have been 87, maybe the first album, the radio album. It was either that or he came home with one of that era. I just remember LL, I remember Public Enemy, I remember Run DMC, I remember then KRS-One records come in, Eric B. and Rakim records, it's just that era. He started going and getting them. I don't know how he was getting them.
Yeah, where's the record store in Perth?
Back then, still there, a place called Dada's.
Wow, it's still there.
Yep.
Awesome.
So we'd catch the bus to the train station, a long bus ride, and then the train all the way in, and then walk around. So he was doing that stuff when he was about 14. I guess I was 9 or whatever, 8. And we just fell in love with it. Yeah. And that became our safe haven.
Was there any instrumentals on these sort of records, or you were just consuming it, making your own little beat tapes and that sort of thing, pause tapes?
Initially, no. We were just learning everything and rapping along to it. We didn't really think you could make music.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. Like, who can make music? How do you make what? It's like thinking you can play in the NBA back then. It's something on TV. It doesn't exist for us. It's impossible, even if you're good enough. So we were just rapping along. It wasn't until my brother was in town in the city one day. They used to hang out in this place called like Forest Chase area, and it was like these bench seats, a bit like the bench seats here, and the kids would all hang out, and they'd all be dressed in whatever. And there was a few hip-hop kids started popping up. And there weren't many. Like, you'd know because of a hat or the sneakers.
Fat laces or something.
Just something.
Yeah.
And so somehow my bro meets a guy called Chris, who raps. The kid was really, really good. Chris Giles. He was really good. And they met or got to know a guy called Too Shy. his name is Steve, but they started calling him Too Shy because he was really mean at cutting. We're talking about a 14, 15-year-old kid from a random suburb out here.
Yeah.
And we lived way over here, and someone else was there. But Too Shy at his house, I tell this story a lot when I'm doing workshops. Too Shy had decks, he had a 4-track recorder and a mic.
That's all you need.
And he was a DJ, so he had records. So my brother was like, what? So they started making stuff. And like Too Shy's house was cool. His parents were just really cool. They always had frozen pizzas and stuff that we'd be able to eat if we went there. He was just about it. He's still doing music. And but they eventually created this crew called Deadly Fresh. And it was really multicultural. There was like a couple First Nations kids. There was a Indian, I think he's Indian. Yeah, he's Chivy D. He could beatbox. There was a couple cats, like a Filipino kid who could dance. And they would do all their dance stuff. And a Sri Lankan kid.
Here,
oh, we're talking,
late 80s?
we're talking late 80s. There was obviously Chris, just Aussie kid who could kill a mic. He was dope. And then my brother and Too Shy. My bro being the bro he was so awesome. He'd be like, you got to come along. M-Phazes, you got to come. He took me everywhere. As soon as I could ride a bike.
What's the age difference?
Like 5.5 years.
So it is a significantly, he's a bit older as a kid. That's a lot.
And he's massive.
Yeah.
So by 15, he's bigger, way bigger than I am now. Mm-hmm. And I'm still just like a little 10-year-old, 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Right? I never got as big as my brother.
Is he athletic though? You playing sport?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. But he had some injury problems, knee stuff. It just sort of plagued his sporting opportunities. But crazy athlete. Yeah. So yeah, my mother was cool. She saw that we were taking it seriously. My bro was like really into things. He gets really intensely into stuff. He's the kind of guy who'd get a keyboard or something and he'll read the manual that day and know how to use it. Uh-huh. And he said, look, we're writing these raps. We're doing this. You should learn a rap. And I was like, what? Because you've been learning the other ones. Let's make our own one. So he and Chris recorded and wrote something, and he made me practice it and practice it and practice it and practice it and understand all the beats and where they sat and where I should breathe. We're talking about a 15-year-old kid.
So he knew the art.
He is amazing. Yeah. He is it's like, and I hate to talk badly about a place, but it's such a waste and unfortunate reality that he was in Perth with that skill level
because he couldn't reach
and not in a
potential.
major city that supported young black kids, right? And so he and Chris and that, they were doing it. So I learned this song. I actually have the recording. One day I'll share it. It's my first song when I was 10. It's actually really good. And there was 2 versions. There's one where they looped up a George Benson sample, and another one where one of the kids who came around would play bass, and he's making mistakes, but it doesn't matter. It was awesome. That's where I kind of learned it's not important to make everything perfect, just make it. And there's kid on bass, there's drum machine, I'm rapping, doing my thing, we're cutting up LL, we're making music, but you can't put it out.
Well, no, there's no avenue to do it, but you could give your friends a tape.
That's what we used to do. I used to go around my friend's house. I'd go around to Paul Chadwick's house, a few other people I knew, Rick Kessel, and I'd play my stuff, and a couple laughed, thought it was funny and cool. Others were like really about it, and they'd give me feedback, and they were all into their music.
Yeah. Because hip-hop in general was just a different beast altogether. So people making hip-hop, they're like, whoa, this is a new kind of music and you're making it yourself?
Yeah.
Really take people by surprise.
Yeah, definitely. And, being kids, you're not really thinking about that level of, creativity and opportunity you're actually making. You're just doing a thing that you think's impossible. It's not going to happen. There's no way. And it plagued me for years. Like, I've always kind of been like, yeah, I should probably get a job. I should probably, versus just locking in. But it was wild. And then from that, we just kept doing stuff and doing stuff and doing stuff. Ended up, like, it was kind of my savior. So I went to a really rough high school, out of primary school. And at that point, because my brother used to get harassed for being into hip-hop. But when I got to high school by 93, whatever it is in Perth, hip-hop was all right. Because Wu-Tang had just arrived. Uh-huh. So all the kids whose big brothers were into metal, their little bros were into Wu-Tang, and then
Snoop Dogg.
and then Cypress and Snoop and all that stuff. I was already all into it, so I was a bit like, it's annoying. You're all annoying me. You don't know about.
We've been on to this for years.
Used to stuff you used to give me shit about. What are you talking? You know, that kind of thing. And I know there are people who would relate to that exact situation. And it's not just a black thing. It was just like back then. I always say it. All my friends who like hip hop, they were all my black friends, whether they were Italian, Aussie, Philo, Indian, First Nations, obviously black, but anyone that was into it, they were my black mates because it was such a niche thing and so frowned upon. I mean, radio used to make fun of it.
No rap crap, they used to say.
You remember it?
Yeah, they used to say.
Triple M?
Triple M used to do that.
Thank
no
you.
more rap crap.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So for us, it was like such a fight against the system. I guess it was our era of, punk, or our era of the early times of certain rock genres, or maybe what Mozart might have been to some people, or Beethoven at the start. Like,
well, you see the same thing happening now with the older hip hop heads and like the mumble rap sort of, that stuff. People go, that's not real hip hop. You're like, but hip hop changes, man.
Yeah, I think. Well, that whole thing's another discussion. Like, the question is, some of it's hip hop, some of it has hip hop in it, some of it's influenced or related to hip hop, but it's not hip hop. Some of it's just not. And we got to stop thinking it has to be.
Yep.
It's not. It's its own thing. It's its own energy.
Yeah.
And if you look at it from that scope, it's wicked. If you try to compare it to Pete Rock and that, it's like, but if you look at it as its own thing, some of it's just crazy energy music. Some of it's a whole nother thing, and that should just be enjoyed.
Yeah. Some of those newer artists, they're looking up to rock stars more than they're looking up to rappers, But they're fitting into this somewhat of a genre that is kind of called hip hop.
Well, if you look at a lot of the early hip hop, that early era, those who really took it somewhere looked up to rock stars too. Like LL, Run DMC, they were all about rock star.
Being the king of rock, yeah.
They were really about that, and look at their journey. Like, I think you have to see that possibility and that vision in order to go walk to it. Otherwise, you're lucky. You might stumble upon it, but it's pretty unlikely. I think it's just a matter of whether newer artists and these who look more to rock stars are prepared to put the work in or not. I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
But you can't get there. You'll never get there high.
Yeah.
Or leaned out. Someone will have to carry you there, and then you're their tool for them to get the success through this thing you have, and that's kind of what manager or that best mate does for someone who's super talented. Yeah. But you kind of got to have your wits about you, or else something will go wrong.
And we see it happening in real time with social media now. These kids that find success and then end up being spat out the other end not long after.
Well, it's always happened. It's just we see it all.
That's true.
It's always happened. So many artists have been signed. I know kids that were signed back when I was young, and they were getting signed at 14, and I'm like, but I'm better. What the? And then, like, you realized, they're signed and they can't do anything if it's not. So I started seeing signed as a different meaning.
Yep.
Like, I was really reluctant to ever signing any pieces of paper.
It's an ownership thing.
Yeah. And unless I just found it strange when someone would be signed to do something, and then it's like, I can't put out the album, my manager's this or the label. And I'm like, I don't know if I ever want to be signed. If that's the case, like, how do you do it yourself? So, years on, my brother and I have done all this stuff in Perth. We rewrote the Respect Yourself campaign song.
Wow.
Through like Healthways back then. So we were on TV with like the Frio Dockers and the Wildcats behind us, and we were rapping and doing all this stuff. I'd done an anti-smoking one, and who's that awesome artist who did Mambo?
Reg Mombassa.
Yeah, met him at this thing. There's a photo of us. Like, we were doing some cool stuff, and we met some pretty cutting-edge people in those kind of council worlds, and they still exist today. There's people that make money happen to get to, your music Vics that get out to these grants that we all try to get. They're all fighting so the arts can exist. Those people have always existed.
Yeah, and it's true, man. But the thing is, with a lot of those grants, the people that don't deserve them often get them because they're good at writing the grants. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother.
It is. Yeah.
That's a whole nother kettle of fish, isn't it?
For sure.
It is tricky because we'll go off on a slight tangent. I've sat on a board writing, reviewing grants, and being like, damn, I wish I could get this grant. Like, and I've applied for so many and I don't get them, even if I've seen how to write them, you know. But sometimes there is that situation where it's like, these people don't need it. God, it's a good application. What do you do? And you have to really deal with moral situations where there's one where you could see could be good, but it just is so poorly put together. It's like, is the outcome going to be poorly delivered?
Man, I think recently one of the grants was 10 grand, went to St Kilda Festival, right? Do they need it? You know, Stuart Singing Bird could have done more with 10 grand than they're going to, you know what I mean? Like that's just an example, but it needs to go to the grassroots stuff rather than the larger scale things, you know?
Yeah, that's for sure. It's just, look, I've seen people write really well explained, well considered grants that aren't full of fluffy nonsense, and they're awesome. I've seen people write, oh, I'm going to do this, you know, rapping and I've got la la la, and it doesn't make any sense. And so you end up reading it going, they have no idea what they're doing. They just want some money and they're probably not going to finish the project. But on the other hand, they might not be good at writing a grant. So that whole world's weird. Like, I don't think I've maybe got one little grant, but I like seeing when people are doing cool projects, like full youth-based intention, for example. For example, I've been working with like Grid Series. So I know Arik works really hard to get the grants to be able to then make these things happen for a number of artists from certain councils. So you know it's going to happen. You know people, like 4 or 5 artists will get an opportunity. There'll be visual side covered, music made, press stuff happen, and it's quite full on, but it's what it has to be. And then they roll on. I like seeing that stuff. I like seeing peeps like The Push getting money because you see where it goes. And
that's been around for a long time now.
Yeah. And if I'm trying to apply and they apply and they get it, I'm like, well, okay.
You know they're going to do good things with it.
Yeah.
For sure.
So,
Getting back on your journey, so you and your brother and your little crew are making music in Perth, so we're talking now mid-90s?
89, 90, 89, I think is when I did my first tune. If I could have released it, I'd be like, what? Been here since 89. But I have it. I got the tune. But 89, causing a ruckus, catching buses, being rude to bus drivers, real little shits. Especially my bro and his mates. I remember being there quite young, being like, is my brother and his friends like, are they dickheads? Like, what is this?
Like being disrespectful.
I don't know if we should do this. Like, why are we acting like this, you know? But, you know, watching and learning and early reading people, learning how to read signals, reading people's gestures, reading a little thing in a shoulder movement that helped me survive a very, very rough and violent space because we moved from the hills down to Swanview, a place called Swanview Midland, which is, so imagine you move from the hills, which we lived in a little rental spot. It's not like we had some nice house in the hills. I think it was asbestos house or something, you know. And we moved down. So where we lived, basically, we couldn't afford to live any closer to the city or at all up in the hills. So it's the cheapest band of property that's at the bottom of the hills, and it's hot. And you have this famous Fremantle Doctor wind.
Wind, yeah.
So when that would come, we'd have to wait for about 5 minutes because we're getting everybody's refuge and all their stink hitting us because it's come through every suburb. We'd wait and then open if we'd get the cool breeze. But, you know, I have some good memories of all that and my friends and things we got up to. But it was extraordinarily violent place.
Really?
Yeah, I've never seen violence like it.
Just alcohol fueled, or what was it?
You name it. Alcohol, drugs, just boredom, racial, just people feeling like pieces of shit. So very sensitive, you know, take it out on each other. I talk a little bit about it on the song Lions on the new album, but like the physicality, the things I've seen, you know, it's pretty intense place. And I didn't like it and I didn't want to be in that. And so I sunk deeper into the music. I'd just come home. My bro would be by this point. So by the time, I'm 12, he's now 17, 18, getting to that age. He's on drum machines and samplers. And no samplers. That was the issue. We never had a sampler, but drum machines and keys. So he was making everything. He was like an early Pharrell. But we didn't have the drum sounds, you know?
You could bang on the table?
Yeah, you could a bit. I mean, we had a drum machine, but, you know, like sampling that snare off that break and that kick, we didn't understand that yet. There's no one around us to explain it. We couldn't see it. You couldn't look it up. Just trying to figure out why is their snare so good. You know, even though we'd sampled a loop, we hadn't thought to cut. I think we thought it was cheating or something. I don't know. But more and more and more into the music with my brother. I ran track. I played saxophone because my brother played the sax, so I picked his one up and copied him. I copied everything he did. I was that little brother. If he picked up a piece of fruit, I picked up a piece of fruit. You know, I follow him everywhere. He'd go running. I'd keep up with him. He'd be like, why is this little kid keeping up with me? I was just determined.
Because you're a successful runner, a hurdler as well. Weren't you?
Yeah, I was pretty successful. Yeah, again, I just copying my bro. He was fast, and I wanted to be faster. But focusing on all that and trying to keep up with him, by like mid-year 9, I applied for a scholarship to a much better school. And
musically?
It was a blend. It was like an all-round scholarship. So it was like blending of my abilities through like English and writing, which had only got good because of hip-hop, because I suddenly got interested in history and everything, because now I could apply it to writing rhymes. Yeah. The only reason I got smart was applying school knowledge to rhyme writing. It was crazy. So, and the more I listened to cats like Rakim and Public Enemy rap, the more information, or KRS I was taking, and Queen Latifah, I was taking in information that made my brain think differently, and I'd look into things and take in information and try and use it, which up to my grades. Otherwise, it's like, what's interesting? It's like, what the street corner, there's nothing here, life sucks. And that was how a lot of kids felt. Whereas I was always picturing something else, and I still remembered, like we talked about, like Shepherd's Bush. I remembered these places. And my mum would always be like, there's this whole world out there, you know.
Because you mentioned she's an artist herself.
Yeah.
What kind of art was she?
Well, she was really good with drawing, like charcoal. She could do figurative, but she was more abstract, more storytelling through sort of imagery and ideas that would mean a thing, you know. So she was really into that, and really good at teaching it, and really good at teaching line drawing. So she would teach fashion students the drawing so that they could then apply it to what they were doing. She would also teach fine arts and still life and all that. So I'd always see her painting in the house. When she had everything done, she would just paint.
And she's embracing you and your brother's musical endeavours because it's artistic, and she wants you to sort of, you know, follow those sort of things, which some parents are not as accepting.
Yeah, it was tricky because I was like wanting to get good grades like everyone else, and I just couldn't in some things. And she was kind of like, just do this stuff. I'm like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, Mum. You need to get an A in math. She's like, I don't know if you do, like just. And then later I'm like, oh, you were right. Like, whereas a lot of folks are like, you have to get the A in math. She's like, when are you gonna do that? Are you gonna do this? And it was hard. It's hard to believe your parents, even if they're saying you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Focus on your art, you'll be fine. Or there are other parents who are like, who know, kid, please just keep working on your science and this, you'll do fine, you know. Yeah. Or some folks are like, get out and start trading, like work, you know. So it's a tricky one because she believes in us, but it's you just assume your parents either believe in you or they're just being nice. But she was right. But she was all about that. So once I switched schools, suddenly life changed a lot. It's like I moved into another dimension. I was still catching the bus with a hood, and it's a weird fact that I lived in such a violent neighborhood and I never had a fight. I stood up a bunch of times, stepped in between fights a bunch of times, ready to fight 5 dudes a bunch of times, but just never happened. You know, like there'd be something about to happen, and then someone, remember there was a whole group of kids behind me once, and I had a run-in with one of them a couple of days earlier. I didn't know him. He wasn't from the area, but he was rough. And I was like, oh, crap, there's that kid, and he's with a whole squad. I'm like, this is where it's happening. This is the day. So I'm like, I'm just rolling in. I'm ignoring him. I'm going to go to the canteen, get my thing, go with some whatever I wanted, Gatorade, about to shoot hoops. And I hear them breathing, and I'm like, all right, am I going to get hit in the head, or am I turned around? What's happening? And I just remember hearing something, oh, is that back? No, not him. I hear a whisper. And I was like, not him. I turned around, and they're gone. Because obviously I had helped out somebody at some point that had made someone go, no, not him. You can't touch it. So like, you know, what goes around comes around. I was very lucky because a lot of my friends, you know, we saw kids getting hit with baseball bats, bricks, cops bashing kids, putting telephone books and just bashing through the books. And we're talking young kids, especially all my Noongar friends who were like my first sort of black community outside of, everyone who loved hip hop, like what they went through. And I got to get a real good insight because they'd always be like, yo, say you're my cousin. Anna, just say you're my cousin, come play, bro. And I'd be like, all right, so I come play basketball tournaments. And I got this whole insight. And that's kind of who I've always been. I'd ride my bike around the neighborhood and just go to people's houses, and I went into everybody's house. And so I saw the insides of all these different types of living. Friends who would never talk, they're going through the same stuff. This guy hated this guy, the same home situation. Just slightly different look or culture. And, kids, they'll say anything to offend each other, so they'll call you anything. That's what I always tell my kids, like, they get called stuff today. And I'm like, the main thing to understand, I say to Ayesele, my oldest boy, I'm like, do you believe them? He's like, I said, when they say call you this, do you believe them? That's the main question, because if you don't believe them, it doesn't matter. He's like, yeah, no, I don't. I said, cool. So here's the thing with kids. They'll call you anything. If you got freckles, they'll call on that. If your hair's one color, they'll call you that. If you got curls, they'll call you that. If you're like
short,
this,
if
they'll
you're
call
tall, doesn't matter.
They'll just go at anything. It's just the color's easiest, and whatever. And then so what you've got to do is question why are they doing it? What's wrong with them? Which is what I've always done. Whenever I've had confrontation, I'm like, what's wrong with this person? Not, I'm going to bash you, you've hurt my feelings. Because I'm like, I don't believe you. So what's up with you?
Yeah.
I've had some pretty interesting situations.
I had a guest on a few weeks ago, and she had a great quote. It was like, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. And that's true. Like, if you don't believe their opinion, why are you taking criticism from it? Like, why are you listening to what they're saying?
Yeah, but when you're young, you're so sensitive, and dad's not around, or maybe he smacked you, or he smacked your mom, all that kind of environment, and just or anything will set you off, just an excuse to lay it on, and you don't know what these kids have been through that day. So I always considered all that. I don't know, I still do. I'm overly considerate of other people's feelings, and to the point it can be detrimental, where you have to get to a point where you're like, hang on, there has to be a line. Like, how much am I prepared to shit on myself for others? And after a while, you're like, yeah, not that much.
No. So you've got to put yourself first at some stage.
Yeah. I just think you can simply walk away. It's not a matter of having to push people back. You just walk away.
So when you change school, I'm guessing that your brother's finished school now as well. So you've changed school. You've got a more accepting artistic school now. You're deeper into music. You're pushing all that bullshit that's happening outside, and you're just focusing on music. You start to get a little bit more serious?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm heavily playing the horn now. I always thought I was going to be a jazz player. I'm heavily playing the horn through high school. It's a private school. Everyone's wearing uniforms. The grounds are beautiful. It's stunning space. Kids are still just the same. They're still pissed off. They still don't want to go to school. They're still like, school sucks. And I'm like, what are you talking about? School sucks. This is sick.
Do you feel pressure because you got the scholarship?
No. I felt like, this is a bit more my vibration.
Right.
I couldn't learn in the other school. I'm not going to name the other school, but I've said the suburb I was in, but it had like a barbed wire fence around it. You'd go into classes. And I remember one class, the kids being so mental, and I'm sitting at the back, and the teacher did a little experiment to try and engage them, and then they all just lost their minds, and they wouldn't stop, and this poor teacher just sat there. I don't know what he was going through in his life, he's probably in his 50s. He just started crying, and the kids are like, ah! They're not seeing a person, they're just like a fixture of the school. And I just remember being like, damn, and as I left, I was like, hope you're okay. And I left, and I remember him looking at me like, it's a weird kid. And then when I got an opportunity for the scholarship, I went to one of the teachers I liked and said, hey, I'm not sure what to do. I feel torn. Like, all my friends are here. I feel like this is where I'm sort of supposed to be at, but I've been offered this scholarship. And she's just like, because it was April 1st. She goes, is this April Fool's Day trick? I'm like, huh? Because you didn't get a scholarship offer. What are you talking about? And I went, okay, fuck this. Fuck you. Fuck everybody. I'm out of here. And so, my mate Paul had got a scholarship, and he's like, you should get one. You're better than me at everything. So why don't you just ask? And then I turned up, and it was wicked.
If you don't ask, you don't get, man.
And I'm still tight with all the cats. So it was a school called Guildford Grammar, and the whole, like, there's about 10 of us from that year group, but it's still tight as, maybe more.
Is that where you met Heath Ledger as well?
Well, that's why I reconnected, because we had gone to kinder together up in Les Murdy. Shout out to Mrs. Ritchie. She was our kinder teacher. She was the best thing ever. Oh, Mrs. Ritchie. Yeah, so we reconnected there, and yeah, it was great. Yeah, like they'd always been passing. Like we're just friends. It's like, oh, man, I haven't seen you for ages. What's up?
Yeah.
You know, and my other
Was
mate.
he into the acting thing then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because you did acting as well.
Yeah, a lot of us did. We're all drama kids, but there was a bunch of farm kids and this and that. But everyone liked drama. Heath was just another drama kid who was really good at sport and had really big fists, and he really liked fighting. Yeah, he loved
Other
it.
kids.
Oh, he loved to fight.
Really?
And, oh yeah. He wasn't going to try and bash people, but he was loved to have a fight.
Because he's got a big frame.
Yeah, and he was just another kid, and he was just really ahead with how he thought and how he saw things and the way he saw the world. And so yeah, like imagine you're in high school and you're doing drama stuff, and you're good, good enough that when I teamed up with him, I think it was Kane Manura, Rick Kessel, and Trevor. Was it Trevor? I think it was Trevor. Anyway, we ended up winning the state theatre sports in like year 11 or something. So all the different schools, and we win. So theatre sports is where you improvise based off, you read a bit of a book and you go off whatever you've read. And I know I'm good, but I realize I can't be that good because my mate's way better. So I guess I'm just all right because he's way better than everybody. I guess we're all just not that good, not realizing, he's going to be the best actor in the world that people are going to imitate for years.
Did he have that star quality from then? You knew he would be successful?
I wasn't thinking about that, but like, so when I remember he shot a film over this on the East Coast. I think it was called Black Rock. He left school, went to shoot, had a small part. And I remember being like, so he's like, oh, that's the main character, this and that. And I remember being like, why are you the main character? You're the main character. What are you talking about? What? So I thought that at the time. To me, we all operated thinking strangely that we could be anything and do anything. So while I didn't think it was possible, it was like, but if we were to, even musically, it's like, I'm the best MC in Perth. Who's got what, who wants it? And we had the crazy battles, crazy mega jams where we'd be just going, my crew versus another crew, just rapping like
at venues in the park.
Venues, underage, mic things, like so crazy. The floor broke.
In Perth City.
A joint called the Globe. I remember this major battle when I was about 17. This kid called Gregory Jordan Gregory. He's a South African kid, sing like a monster. He ended up getting signed and doing some cool stuff. But his first time singing was with us. I was like, come on, you got to get out. And he comes out singing with a cane and just all this kind of stuff. And I had my whole crew, Young Truth back then was rapping, all of us. So crazy battles, a lot of ciphers, a lot of stuff. But it's like, nah, there's no one on this level. Running track, I'm state champion. What? It's that. That's how it was. Like, I'm winning. I'm not egoic, but I'm winning. That's how it was. I'm be better. I have to get better than my brother. What can I do? Like, of course, there are things I know I wasn't good at. Like, I wasn't great at, I don't know, algebra, but I'd use an equation in a rhyme. And so, with all of us, we all were operating like that's what we're doing. And with him, it was like, yeah, of course. So when he starts getting film things, people are freaking out. I'm like, of course he is. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. It's what we do.
Yeah.
When I decided to move to Melbourne, it took a while to get to know people, but it's like, no, this is what I do.
Did he move to Melbourne before you did?
He got a train. So he was in a series called Sweat that I actually got a part in, but had to give up because I didn't have a driver's license and my character had to drive. This is a shitty character anyway. I'm glad I didn't play it. But would have been a different trajectory, obviously.
Yeah. You just had no interest in driving at this stage?
I didn't have my license. I'm like 17. Yeah. 17, you can get it in Perth back then, but I just didn't have it. And they were like, we need, man. I was like, it's cool, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll just do school. And so somewhere during that year, he drove over the Nullarbor with Trevor DiCarlo, and just kept working off Sweat. He did the next thing, got Raw.
Yeah.
And was already happened now for Raw, and off that he then ends up getting 2 hands and goes over for 10 things. We just kept hearing he kept working. He's got this, he's got that. It's like, yeah, cool. Yeah, of course he does.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I think there's probably been haters around from the times, but they're just jerks. We were always just so happy for him.
For sure, man.
But the hard part, I remember, like, when he was first moved and he was living in LA, like, there was a period of time where there was no work. And I remember we'd talk and he'd be like, you know, they're offering me these soapies, this and that, and these parts, and I just don't know. And I remember being like, no, man, don't do that. We're all back here. If you ever need to come back, we're all here. It doesn't matter. Just do what you want to believe in it, you know? And he's like, yeah, no shit. You know, so we all had each other. And he always kept the same crew the whole time, like, because we were the peeps who loved him and kept it real and all the rest of it. So there's been a lot of talent. I mean, I've got friends I grew up with that people don't know about because of the neighborhood and what happened. Some of the best athletes, kids who used to kick my ass, footy players that should be Brownlow medalists today. Never heard of them.
Just didn't continue it after school.
16itis, I call it.
They start drinking, smoking, whatever.
And they're just so good. It's like, oh, I'm going to make it. And they start celebrating like they're there, and happens to heaps of kids.
Yeah, man, it does.
Yeah.
In a lot of sports, and in a lot of other sort of applications, you see people that may be amazing artists, whether it's musical or whatever, and they just sort of fall off the wayside, man. It inevitably happens.
Yeah, I think it's pressure. You know, you're asking about pressure before, but I think it depends how you see pressure. I've always seen things as opportunities rather than pressure. But some kids just see the pressure of it, and I don't know, maybe they don't want it, maybe they just happen to be good. Because there are definitely kids who weren't as good who get there. And it's like, no, I was never as good. Like, I know people who are better than me. But
that's the sort of argument, natural ability and hard work, you know what I mean? Some people just work hard for it that don't have the natural ability, whether it's, you know, artistic or sports, you know?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the guides around and advice. A lot of us didn't have any guides or the kind of, like, you need older figures you can believe in and trust. So for a lot of young boys, they might have an auntie, or maybe they got their mum that they can trust and really believe. But sometimes if their mum or their auntie isn't that kind of figure in community, it's hard to believe. And then if there's not the right guys around who can say, hey, stop stressing about this and that, and can talk you through it, how do you know what to do? You know what I mean? Every time you're restarting a chain, instead of the chain links connecting, every time people are starting new chains. And there might be one person around, but they might be in a whole different community, a whole different neighborhood. And so they can't get to everybody. And so when you need that information of, hey, just enjoy this, don't worry about this, that part doesn't matter. Just keep going to training. Now you'll get to party. Do you want to party here today, or in Paris in 3 years when you're getting paid, or Sydney when you've made the Olympics? Yeah, or the Swans or something, and you're living in Bondi Beach. Like, you know.
Think of the big picture.
Yeah, and just chill. And if it doesn't work out, it's fine, but just find out. So I don't know. I don't think people get that info. Sometimes people who have made it are so far removed, you know.
Yeah. Sorry, go.
Well, I was going to say, I think some of it's similar with the newer generation of artists and hip-hop artists, especially for me, in my case, more like a lot of the African kids rapping. I don't think a lot of them know, like, another African's already made a lot of steps and kicked in a lot of doors and barriers and done certain things, because there's a disconnect just due to whatever certain reasons. A lot of them are retracing and reworking steps they can actually skip. But I need to connect with them, and others who are from that earlier gen need to connect to be like, no, okay, yeah, that's already happened. We need you to go here because we couldn't get there. Don't worry about this part. It's already done. Come look. So that's about community and building. And that's why, for example, footy players whose dads or grandparents played footy get there, because it's just a simple path.
Yeah, and that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you finish school, what's the next step there? You still doing your athletic stuff?
Yeah. Kept being into my athletics. What did I do? I won the Australian State Schoolboys Championship. I'd come over to Victoria to play in the Australian Basketball Championships.
Was that what, under 18s or something?
Yeah, I was 16 playing under 18s.
For
WA.
WA, yeah.
And then State Schoolboys was like WA against other Australian top schools, and won that stuff. I was like, okay. Met some cool cats from Victoria. Met this young, was really cool, vibrant girl called Amelia, who's now Amelia Rasciano, who's a legend. You got to check out what she does. Her comedy, her cabaret, her speeches and advocacy, and what she talks about. Amelia Rasciano, she's amazing. Okay. She's unreal. Right. It's just random, like, vibration and meeting these kind of people. Mm-hmm. Like, what's the chances that...
So how did you meet her through basketball?
No, I met her through track. She was running for Victoria. Okay. She was just had a vibe, and she was, like, energetic. And I was like, you're cool. So when I end up coming over here, she's one of the first people I meet because she's down at the track. And she's like, hey, you're that, you know? So I was doing track. I decided... It was a really difficult decision to leave Perth. I met my father for the first time early that year.
He was here in Melbourne?
No, he came to Perth. My mother had got really sick when I was about 10, so finally there was a reach out to him and he was able to get in contact with us because he didn't know where we were for a long time.
But he was based here?
He was in London.
He was in London
the whole time.
So then, yeah.
Yeah, my mother brought us out to Australia. It was quite crazy and sudden. It was just me and my brother. Like, it's a pretty heavy story. Like, Pops comes home one day and no one's there. It's one of those stories. It's pretty fucked. But I never blamed anybody or put it on my mom. She was going through what she went through, and it's just a pity. But when I was about, 10, 11, 12, 11, because she was so unwell, there was a reach out made. And so we were talking for years. My brother had been over, but my mum was sick, so I didn't want to leave her, so I stayed. And then he came over when I was 16, nearly 17. And that was awesome, but it did my head in. Completely unscrewed my brain.
In what capacity?
Just realizing how much I needed him, how much love and how much of me was him. Mm-hmm. And it's not like there'd ever been like, oh, fuck, my dad looking energy. That didn't exist.
And you had the older brother as well for that sort of role model. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but he needed it the most.
That's the tough part, yeah.
You know, so I was lucky. I had him. I had my bro, but my bro needed my dad, but my dad didn't know where we were.
It's a tough one, man. Not like the internet was a thing there where you could just get on Facebook. Like, finding each other would be tough.
No, and some say, maybe you could have tried harder, but there's a lot of nuance to the whole thing. So he finally had it saved up enough, and he came to see us, and it was beautiful. I loved it. But yeah, it did my head in. I was doing my final year of school. I was all in love with my girlfriend and all my friends and that life and that world, and I realized it was coming to an end, and it was quite a lot because I kind of could have just stayed in this little mini galaxy forever, quite happily.
Be a big fish in a small pond in Perth sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess so. But, there's a lot of room for developing a place, but if you want to develop, you got to go and do things and then come back or just stay away wherever you go. But knowing that was coming up, knowing that my mother was leaving Australia to do an exchange and I had to get out of the house, so I had to figure out something. Where am I going to live? My brain was just falling apart. And by the time I was doing my exams, I was in music. I couldn't even hear, like they do these notes, like boom, boom. How many notes apart is that? I couldn't hear a third. I couldn't hear a fifth. I couldn't hear anything. I should have probably got a, what's that word called where you get?
Dispensation.
Yeah, something like that. Should have got something like that. But just went through it, stuffed up my exams. I was like, okay.
But you're doing a lot. You're playing state basketball, you're running track, you're doing your music thing, your dad's coming over, your mum's unwell. There's a lot fucking going on, man.
Yeah. So when I went back to Guildford years later when I was successful, that was my whole speech to the kids, like, get something out of the school because they'll get everything out of you. So get what you need out of this place. It's not the school's fault, but these schools, they push and drive. And
especially if there's
what do you want? Yeah. Get it. What are you good at? Do that thing. So, but yeah, I was like, well, I'm going to go to Melbourne. My brother had left mid-year. My mum was gone. So I had about a month and a half at the end of the year where I was just at home alone. And then I caught the train here. I cried for the first 4 hours on the train.
It's a long train ride.
Yeah, 3 days. I just sat there crying. All my friends were on the platform, my high school sweetheart, all that kind of thing. The first time you had those feelings, just leaving it, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why would I leave, And I thought it'd be a year or so, but I got to Melbourne and met up with my bro, and we were staying at a joint in Northcote that was really cool, Clifton Hill. I didn't realize how cool the area was yet. But then we had to leave that place due to certain reasons, and there was a period where, we had nowhere to live. My bro had he was older and he'd been here longer, so he had a couple girlfriends and stuff, and you could have a place to go. But some nights we would just walk around all night. We had nowhere to sleep.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And in the day, we could go into a friend's house who lived on Brunswick Street when, like, the main sort of boss of the house was out, because we weren't paying any rent. They were like, pay rent or you can't stay. But he'd sneak us in and we'd sleep. His name was Adam. Adam would sleep, senior horn player, and we'd sleep for the day, and then we'd walk around all night, just up and down Brunswick Street, and just listen to music and hear what was going on. Couldn't buy a beer. But because my bro knew a few people, he'd be like, yo, you gotta meet Blex, this dope guitar player, and meet him, and he invites us up on stage. So I start rapping, and I'm like, yo, what the you can fucking rap. Well, what's up with your bro, Kabal? My brother's name's Kabal. What's up with your little brother? He's like, oh yeah, he's good. How old's he? 17. What? Yo, he should come again. So we just started doing what we'd been doing together, but around Melbourne at like the Evelyn and a few other spots, and met like loads of cool people who are still staples of Melbourne music. But they gave us a place to feel like home. It was really cool playing in those spaces. And my bro and I were still trying to make this record, a new album, because we'd written stuff, but we had like EP of songs, but we were finishing a record, and we actually recorded an EP, which I have as well.
Which you never put out?
From 97, yeah. Never put out.
Under what name?
It was called Head Eat Tail. It was like an Ouroboros, like a snake eating itself. It was a circular idea, was the name of our crew. I don't even know if it was a good name or not, but Head Eat Tail was the name. And I was like, I don't know, but whatever. But the songs were sick. They were very Afro-percussive. They were very hip-hop conscious, focused, very melodic. We were really melodic. We were really into melody. Yeah, we just were doing our thing and gigging and trying to get up at spots and play with different bands. And that's where I ended up meeting Peril, was at the Evelyn.
Yep.
You know,
He was DJing?
no, he was checking out the band. It was Rumblefish was the band, and he was interested in maybe doing some cuts with them and stuff. I didn't know who he was. And even when I started working with him, I didn't realize how much of a famous teenager he had been with all his graffiti and b-boying. He was just a cool guy.
Yeah.
Cool Peril was really mad charismatic and funny.
Hip hop though.
Oh, completely. And he was so funny. He's still funny, but he was so funny and just always laughing, in the best mood, and had such a heavy and strong work ethic. He worked hard.
Yep.
And I mean, it's a lot of the reason 1200 worked was his work ethic, to get things up, to make posters, to do this, we've got to do that. I was just like, okay.
The DIY attitude.
Yeah, he had it. He had it from all the graffiti days, and
That's it.
b-boy, you learn it. So that was a really interesting journey through to that point where that begins. And even back, there's so many little things that led to it. Like they were asked the question, like in a breakout, like an icebreaker recently at a thing I was at, like, who's the most influential artist and what was the most influential gig? And I was like, oh, Chuck D, Public Enemy. When he played with, he came out in 92 or 93 with Ice-T. And they're like, oh, okay, why? I said, I didn't think the real rappers were going to come out on stage. I thought it would be like doubles. Why would they come all the way to what? When Ice-T came out, I was like, what? He's actually here? You know, like, I just couldn't conceive that they would come. And same with Public Enemy. And seeing a show like that at that age, it was mind-blowing.
Was that Festival Hall?
Well, it was Perth. It was the Entertainment Centre.
Yeah, okay.
Entertainment Centre? No, Burswood Dome. Yeah, I think it was out there. And during Ice-T's set, I was walking with my mate Oggy. What up, Og? And he ended up becoming a good drummer, and he was always graffitiing. He was like the other hip-hop cat in our neighbourhood. He is more my brother's age, so he would drive and stuff and take us to things. So we went with him, and I'm walking with Oggy, and my brother's gone to the bathroom or something, and we walked past this sort of backstage curtained off area. It's like a sort of tarp, and there was a gap in the tarp, and I look through, and I see Chuck D, and I'm like, oh, Chuck! And he's like, huh? I'm like, yo, Chuck! Yo, Chuck D! Yo, Chuck! I'm yelling out to him, and he's like, he looks at me, and I think in his mind, because, you know, he looks and he's like, oh, what the fuck? And then he looks to his right, and he's thinking, and I was always thinking he's thinking about whether he's going to come over, but in hindsight, he's probably thinking, well, how many little black kids are out here? Can't be many. I'm gonna say what's up, you know.
So he did.
So he looks back, and he's like, gets up, and walks over, and he comes over and daps us, and I'm just like, what? He's like, what up, little man? And I was like, hey, what up, Chuck? My brother loves you, Chuck. I don't know where he is. He had to go somewhere, Chuck. It's my mate, Uggy, Chuck. What's up, Chuck? Oh, my God. He's just like, yeah, man. I was like, hey, what you doing? He's like, just chilling. And but I remember his hands. I remember that callous, strong hands he had. I remember the dap. I just remember he was just big, and his aura, he just had this glow, and he was just happy, and he was so handsome. Can I say that? He was just so handsome. I
was
haven't
larger
seen
than life.
dude like that in real life, just on TV and in the magazines. So it was like, wow, you look even cooler, and wow, you actually have a texture. Like, this is sick. Years later, oh, and off that same era, not long after it, I keep hearing how Public Enemy are down with Sounds Unlimited from Sydney, and we're like, what? Why are they down with them, And we like Sounds Unlimited. I like them. I like the melodies. I thought the raps were good. I thought it was cool. I just wanted it to be us. So to my brother, like, how did we get down, And so we ended up doing a show at the same venue. Was it at Burswood the first? Anyway, it was either the Entertainment Centre or Burswood Dome with Public Enemy. But I ended up doing a support gig when I'm about 14 for Sounds Unlimited at this festival, doing all original tracks with my bro. And I meet Rosano. And Rosano's so cool. His sister's so cool. They were the nicest hip-hop people I'd met, other than Chuck. Because, everyone always tries to be some bullshit. These guys were just straight up, like, what's up? And they're like, you're really good, bro, And that was it. I saw them, and they left. And years later, I meet Chuck again. And I'm like...
As an adult?
Yeah. He did some show, and I go up and I'm like, yo, Chuck. And he's like, hey, man. I'm like, we met when I was 12. And I told him the story, and I was like, yeah. And you were like, yo, what up, little man? I was like, I'm a pretty successful hip-hop artist in Australia, and a lot of it started from that handshake. Wow. I said, I remember it so clearly. You're like, what up, little man? He's like, well, you ain't so little now, huh? Because I figured out his stuff. And I was like, man, this is crazy. And I just wanted to hug him and hang out all night. I couldn't. That'd just be weird. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah. And then when I was working on the Burn Gently documentary with Ant, when I reached out to Rosano, I hadn't spoke to Rosano since then. There was no internet back, so time passes. You don't know what people are. Turns out he's doing all this cool stuff in Waterloo. Is that the area he's in? Is that Waterloo? Is that in Sydney?
Yeah.
In town. Yeah, around there in the flats, he's doing all this cool stuff. And so I reach out. I'm like, hey, Rosano, what's up, man? My name's M-Phazes. I've been in this group 1200 Techniques. Love everything you've been doing. Working on this doco, would love to interview you. I actually met you when I was like 14 at this show, and blah, blah, blah. You were really nice to me. So it's really nice to reach out through IG, which was bizarre. And he writes back, he's like, yo, what up? I know exactly who you are, but I never knew that kid I met grew up to be you.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, fuck, that's a trip.
Yeah.
You remembered meeting all that stuff, that kid from Perth. And it's a small world. So hip-hop, the cypher, 360 degrees. It's brought me to some amazing places that if I hadn't had it, I don't know who I'd have become.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. And that Chuck D moment is still so much a huge part of your story and where you got to.
Yeah, very much. I never tried to emulate Chuck or emulate anyone, but definitely that do the right thing mentality was always how I did it. Like, those lessons in hip-hop is the hip-hop I've always carried with me.
Because he could have dismissed you and not come over, which changes everything.
Yeah, it breaks my heart.
Well, it didn't happen though, but yeah.
It breaks my heart. I remember watching Ben Johnson run 100 meters, and he was there giving signatures, and I just wanted to shake his hand, and I got so close, and it was like, it's all finished. And I just looked at him, he looked up at me, and just went back to his shoes. He was tired, and I'm just another kid, but I remember being like, I'm the only black kid here, please. I remember feeling it. Didn't say it, but I remember how I felt. So I know with Chuck, it wouldn't have been like the end of the world, but the fact that it happened, it's a story I get to tell.
Man, and I can see the fondness in your eyes when you just talk about it.
I was talking, I need to write a letter to Chuck. Just thank him again.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they set such a positive goal, especially early hip hop, because so much of it was about bettering yourself, overcoming the adversity of your environment, taking the high road. you know, they would explain there was the dark road and the hard options, and they talked about drugs and they talked about all of it.
But with a positive vibe.
But yeah, they narrated it. They didn't celebrate it. You know, now it's very celebrated. But that idea and like what Queen Latifah would write about, what Poor Righteous Teachers were writing about, even back to like the last poets that I was really into from a young age. It's pretty weird. I was really into the last poets and Gil Scott-Heron really early. I got to meet Gil later as well, like a year before he passed. It was just the best. And so that really influenced my life and every decision I made. So I often didn't relate to, like, so when NWA comes out, I'm relating to what they're saying in Fuck the Police, not just Fuck the Police, but the story and what they're trying to say and the different sides of the negative elements of the hood. Yeah. Whereas everyone's like, yeah, I got to be that. I'm like, I think that's not what they're exactly saying. I think you're missing it. But how do you explain that to other kids your age? You just stay quiet and do your thing and watch your friends end up in juvie and you don't.
Yeah, I think that was... NWA was conscious rap packaged in a different way.
Yeah, very much. They love Public Enemy. I mean, the whole sound was based off what PE were doing. I mean, even Ice Cube's first album was with Bomb Squad.
Bomb Squad.
Yeah, and that's that whole crew. So they loved it. And it was very social political music, but a lot of people just heard, you know...
If you take it for face value, it's glorifying that stuff. But if you dive deeper, it's not.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was always torn with a lot of elements of hip-hop. I would hear the rhymes, the rhythm, the vocal tone, the placement of words. Everyone else was just hearing certain things, and I felt the separation happen real quick.
But that's, you want to dive into it and look at it deeper than just the face value. You got a fly flying around, sorry, man.
All right, it's Australia.
But so when you meet Peril, he sees you rap, and this is, I'm guessing, the early genesis of 1200.
Yeah. I mean, well, it led to it. I mean, he sees me and my bro rap. We're introduced. He's just got this good vibe. He's definitely got this like hustler spirit, and I could see it. Like, I'm really very good at reading people. Like I said, like little mannerisms and how their head tilts and what their eye does. I can tell if there's about to be violence or if someone's being dodgy, or it's just how I had to be to survive growing up. But he just had self-belief and an intention to do this group. The group that he was looking to work with, Rumblefish, but I could see he wanted to do his own thing and he wanted us involved. Just like that. He's like, I make beats. You should come do some stuff with me too. And we were like, oh, we do our own stuff. He's like, okay, cool. So we were originally thinking maybe he could join me and my bro, or he would join Rumblefish and so would we. But then when he started bringing his sampler around, and I liked the stuff. It was just bouncy, and I was like, this is cool. So
you didn't have a sampler at this stage?
No, we still had our drum machine and all that. So we were still chords and making up all the music. It was cool. But we had a Tascam 8-track, so I could take his stuff and put it on the tape and then record and layer my ideas. So that's sort of how it started, just dabbling. And we had his sampler around for a bit, wrote a bunch of stuff. And then I was like, yeah, that's the idea. And he's like, cool. Well, let's go to the studio and record it. And I'm like, huh? Yeah, my mate Danny Damascene's got a studio, but we'll have to hire a compressor or get a Yuri from whatever place it was. I'm like, all right. Okay, I was just figured our mic and things enough. We record to chrome tapes. He's like, no, we've got to go to... So we go out, and we record, and now we're hearing stuff mixed better because he knows Danny, and Danny was really about that stuff. And then, I can't remember what the first song was. It might have been a song called The Hoedown. And there was another song we did which had a Prince sample that we never put out, but it was really cool.
Would have been hard with the Prince sample.
Yeah. The Prince one might have been later. But we did that, and then we did a couple other bits and pieces. And then we started kicking it with Rusiel a lot. Rusiel is still like one of my favorite MCs to ever come out of Australia. Like, he's half Jamaican, and he definitely has that swagger and flow in what he does. I mean, his home life's his home life. And he's been there a lot of times, but God, he could rap. Rusiel, whew. Oh my God. So he came in and we did a session where we recorded Can't Stop. And because he'd done a couple shows with us, it was like just 3 MCs and a DJ type shows, like real traditional with Peril flipping breaks and sections, and we'd do all the old school chants from the films and new ones we'd come up with. Yeah. We'd do all that stuff. But we went and recorded that, and in that same session, I believe my brother, was it the same session? Let's just say it was the second session, and Bruce Yell came out for that. My brother had been pushing Peril to do harder songs because everything was bouncy, and my bro liked hard shit, and he's like, let's do something hard, like what's with all this bouncy, like something rough and hard, something hard as hell, like rah, like this. I was like, all right, fucking I'll do it, fucking get my brother, get Simon on it, he loves that shit, you know. And Simon is really into his sort of heavy sort of blues, rock, funk stuff.
Driven guitars.
Yeah, he's wicked. Really funked out though. Loves funkadelic and all that stuff. And so he comes through and they come up with a riff which is the boom boom gong da dum dum boom 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 da dum dum boom boom gong gong. And I was like, I told you I can make something hard like this. And my bro's like, fuck yeah. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm skinny and 18. Like, I don't know, maybe. And I just turned 18. And me and my bro sit there and we pen Hard as Hell. Now, Goodbye wrote most of Hard as Hell. I wrote my blocks. He wrote the hook. He pushed the idea, wrote the structure and strategy, and wrote most of the third verse. I just helped. And then we wrapped it together, though. And so, but we go in the studio, my bro does his stuff. One fucked up devastator. He just goes wild on it. He just murdering. Like, he's so integral to 1200's beginnings. Mm-hmm. And then I come in, I'm the G-force, feel my desire. I fire it up, wire it up, in barbed wire, stringing them higher and higher, drop your gats, killer, raise your fist, so your fire, blam, sonic boom fills the room. And was it my brother's line? He goes, say MCs crawl back to your mum's womb. I was like, yeah, MCs crawl back to your mum's womb. Oh, we're breaking it up. You know, it was just fun like that, like just giving each other ideas back and forth. And no ego, like, oh, it's all, no, like, what do you reckon? That's just how we worked.
But you're in a real professional studio at this time.
It was a guy's house.
Okay.
But he had all the stuff you need.
Right.
Real professional.
It's at your fingertips.
The EP I'd been working on with my brother, Headache Tail one, we had done at a professional studio. The one in Balaclava. Woodstock. We had done it there because our mate was sort of working there and we were able to get in. Mm-hmm. But no, just at Danny's house. But it was set up really well. And I remember doing that verse. And there'd been periods when I was younger where I'd do a song, my bro would come home and I'd record and he'd be like, oh, man, you really, because he used to help me write, and then I started writing, I was getting a bit better, and then one day I'm about 14, he comes home, he's like, shit, that's good, man. I was like, oh, really? He goes, yeah, I think you can just write yourself now. It's like, okay, so I kept doing more and more, and after a bit, he's like, what? So by the time we're out here, he's like, no, he's got it. So I do this verse, and I just remember coming out the booth, like, what the hell, I hit this harmony on the BVs, just don't know what happened. I remember coming out the booth and my brother and Rusiel just looking at me like, yo, what's going on with you? And I was like, I don't know. Was it good? They were like, yo. They played it back and I'm just, what? You know, so we do the whole song and we'd been doing just a few bits and pieces and shows. And basically anytime Peril would DJ, he'd be like, why don't we do a set? We should do a set. He'd be DJing something at the DMCs. You should come and host. So he was just always about that idea. Yeah. He was really progressive with the whole thing. And it was interesting back then because we were doing what we were doing and the Aussie scene was very much what it was and we weren't part of it. We just weren't. Peril's so Italian, so is his brother, so they weren't, and they were about that. They weren't trying to be Anglo and they were gold chained and Gucci'd out, you know, that kind of energy. Yeah. But they were also been around and they'd had all this old beef and all this graph beef and B-boy beef and DJ battle beef I didn't know about. I'm just meeting peeps and I'm like, why are these folks so fucking weird? Why is everyone so staunch here? Like, people want to fight, I'll fuck someone up. I don't want to do that. Like, what the fuck? Like, but I realized I don't know how much people were really about it or weren't. And I started to realize just reading people, I'm like, he ain't staunch. He's just fucking, there's something wrong with that guy. I'll just say what's up and be nice to him. Yeah. You know, so a lot of these cats end up being cool with that people probably were intimidated by.
So you felt on the outer from what was happening in the core hip-hop scene?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was new here. Uh-huh. Who's a skinny kid with an afro, fucking pretty boy, you know, that kind of stuff. And I'd be like, okay, fuck off. Mm-hmm. You know, but I was more sensitive back then. When you're young, you're sensitive. Yep. So I would just rap harder and harder.
Use it as motivation.
Yeah, and I just wanted to crush and annihilate everybody. in everything, anywhere I could.
Which is a good hip hop mentality, though.
Yes, but it was a conundrum because I was also just wanted to love everyone.
Yeah, because you're interested in the conscious stuff, and that's popping off, and that's what you're really looking up to.
Yeah.
But you don't. But yeah, the angry stuff is not what you're taking reference from as much.
Yeah. So even in the battles, I did some battles, and I'd battle, but there'd be a level I'd go to, and I'd always kind of just stop at that line, and people would go further, and I'd be like, whatever. There was only one major battle I was in where I just was like, nah, everyone can die today, and I just went through everybody, and it was a massive crowd. It was at a festival. I always forget it. You need to speak to Arik Blum about this one. He'll tell you the story. But I battled everybody. I had to keep battling them extra times. People are like, I think M41, I don't know. I'll make them go again. You know, so I'm getting more and more intense and more savage, and massive crowd. And yeah, I took that one out. It was a pretty big deal. But that whole battle scene, you got to be pretty hardcore about it, and really just have things planned. I was really, as far as freestyling, I do not like pre-planned stuff, even in a battle. I'm like, well, it's not a freestyle. Because my mind of freestyle is making it up on the spot, when freestyle can technically just mean do whatever you want of any style. We're not judging the consciousness and the lyricism of it. But for me, battles, I'd go in and just, all right, let's go. And then they'd hit me with all these things. And I'm like, how do you know? What is this? This isn't a freestyle.
They've done their research.
You know? So I then realized, okay, when there's an open mic and we're rocking, get that motherfucker on next to me. Let's go. And so they'd rock the crowd, and I'd be like, rock the crowd harder. And then they'd be like, oh, shit. And I'd just take everybody out with the crowd rocking. Yeah. And in those environments, and then a live show. And we used to just work on our live show and just build it up. And my bro was really about how we did each show, really what we would do. We would think about how we should perform better, what part of the set wasn't any good. We'd film ourselves and watch it back. Like, sounds funny. We'd film our shows, you know, we have a friend, and like we'd study it and go like, that's boring, that's this. And so...
Like watching a sports game and figuring out where your weaknesses are.
Yeah, we'd watch tape
and
figure it out. And so our show elevated really quick. And then when we needed, I think Pearl was doing something with Echo, like a mixtape, when Echo was popping off, and they were doing these wicked parties back then. Wicked Force Breakers would be breaking, everything was happening. It was such a good era. And he, you know, would be at the Pearl's Planet of the Breaks nights and all these different events he did. It was wicked. But it was in that period where he needed to get some like sort of lawyer help for a negotiation, which led to the lawyer being like, I have a small indie label if you're interested in putting something out. So we played him our stuff, and
this is Rubber Records.
And that's Rubber Records, and that goes on. And David Vodika's becoming a big, decently known music lawyer. Now he's like the guy with the firm. He's that person, you know. Yeah. But
at this stage, though, had the group, you had a name.
Yeah.
You had, your brother was part of it.
He was part of it, but at the end of 1999, I'd gone to London. I nearly stayed, to be honest.
To see your dad?
I went to see my dad, and I nearly stayed because I was just on a vibration. I kept meeting everybody. I was suddenly inside labels, hanging out with these producers and people doing stuff. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm in all the right places. And I'm training with Linford Christie's running coach. Everything's there. London's like, just stay. And I'm like, I've got this EP with these guys. I can't just leave them. I got to go finish this thing. That's just how I felt. I felt like that was the calling. So I came back. My brother hadn't really been vibing as much at that point. And it's kind of my fault too. You know, I'm growing. I'm starting to outgrow into my own person. And there are things in his character that I'm not feeling. And I'm moving on. And instead of being like, I need you here. We need each other. Just stay. But can I do this? It was kind of like, you should go to London. I was just there. It was crazy. You should meet everyone I met. You'd fucking kill it because there's nothing, you're not vibing in Oz anymore. I wish I'd just begged him to stay instead. But he goes to London, and it's almost at the same time all the 1200 stuff starts popping. And I'm in a really mixed up state now because my brother's gone. I feel like it's partially my fault, or very much.
But he's enjoying it there.
Well, that's the intention, but he's not. And then this group starts working. And I'm like, fuck, where's my bro? What do I do? You know, but at the same time, I needed to forge forward at that point. at that point, it made sense. At this point now, I'm like, could have done that different. But at the time, couldn't see it.
Yeah. So it starts to pop off. Peril's out there everywhere, so that helps drive the popularity. He's got a lot of different opportunities for you guys. So then your live shows are picking up. And then do you record the first album and put it out on rubber?
Yeah. So live shows are picking up. I'm missing my brother. I'm doing the shows myself. I'm finishing the record off by myself, like it was half done. But we put out, Hard as Hell, a couple of other tunes on an EP. I told my brother we're putting them out. He's like, okay, cool. Like, it's not like he can just fly back. We don't have any money. And he's doing this part. He actually had a dope-ass drum and bass group he was working with that should have taken off. It's crazy. Anyway, it's a whole nother discussion. But, we put out the first Hard as Hell, and everyone just jumps to it. And then we're asked to play live, and people are like, what the fuck? Their live show is sick. It was well ahead of what everyone was doing. And also, like, it was an interesting era because everyone's hating on it. It's like, you got instruments and a drum. That's not hip-hop. I'm like, go fuck yourself. What do you mean it's not hip-hop? You know, fucking tell me, where the fuck are you from? You know, whatever suburb, go fucking back there. That was my attitude because I'd been doing live band shit since I was 15. So, and to me, that's what hip-hop is.
Well, yeah, they're sampling live instruments. You're just doing it through a sampler.
Yeah, but we would do it all. We had samples, percussion, guitar parts, drums, over the top of stuff. So we were just doing what I do. What's interesting is later, once we stopped doing the group, everybody did that same setup. I was like, oh, you fucking pieces. I see what you were trying to do, you know. But, the show was wicked, and we got a booking agent was really interested really quickly. There was someone who was welcome to help, came on to help manage a bit of what we're doing because there was stuff that was a bit out of our league now. Vodka helped make the first EP happen, and I'm still really tight with David Vodka. We have a great friendship. And it was just wild. Like, I remember getting in a car, turning on the car, and the song starting. And I was like to my friend, I was like, you have my song? And they're like, no. Like, we're just playing. Like, I don't remember giving you a tape. And they're like, it's not a tape, it's the radio. I was like, what? I was like, what? You know, and that's when it started. I was like, this is crazy feeling.
So who's servicing it to radio? How are they getting on?
I think we were doing it ourselves at that point. Like, through Rubber, they had a small servicing group that we're working with.
Yeah.
But as the momentum was building, we got a booking agent, Joe Seg. They got us the support for Linkin Park, off Hard as Hell. So I got to hang out with all the Linkin crew. That was really cool. And Sunk Lotto. Yep. And we played shows. Before that, we'd already played. With my brother, we'd played support for Snoop Dogg when he first came out.
Wow.
Got to meet him. Said, what's up? He inhaled this thing, like, sees me. He's like, yo, what up, homie? I was like, yeah. When I did my set, you know.
In Melbourne, you got to support him. Where was that at?
Last minute. Again, another Peril hookup. Wow. Someone called him, yo, can you group me? Can you do your group? Yeah. Me and my bro went out and rocked it. Kabal was on stage for that one. Classic. Me and my bro rocked Snoop support together, and we smashed it. Interestingly, there was some prick who threw a coin on stage, a coin at us. And I was like, picked it up, I was like, thanks, you know, put it in my pocket. And then a few more came, and I was like, what the fuck? Peril turns off the music. What the fuck? Have some respect. This and that. I'm like, yeah, it's that motherfucker right there. You know, my bro's huge, and I'm ready to go. I'm like, that one, get him up here, get him on stage. And I was like, oh, no. And I was like, yeah, fucking have respect. And then Peril brings the beat back in, and it's right on the drum roll. Rock it straight into the rap. We just smashed the shit. And then, you know, you go on your career, and you go into your career, and then next thing you know, wait, have I got it right? Was that one? Wait, there's so many shows. Maybe it was the Linkin Park show where the coin happened. No, Snoop was just cool. The crowd was cool.
Right. Where was Snoop at?
That was at the place you mentioned before. Festival Hall. Mm-hmm. Snoop crowd was cool. No one fucked with us. We smashed it. And it was a really mixed crowd. It was beautiful to see all these different cultures in the crowd, like all these different types of kids. It was the Linkin Park support. Motherfucker threw some shit at us.
Angry kids.
Yeah, but we then went into Hard as Hell, and we stomped it. We walked out. And then years later, when we started having the internet stuff and we're doing 1200 stuff, I get an email from a guy, hey man, I was that guy who threw the coin. I'm such a big fan of you guys. I feel so bad all those years ago. You know, that kind of stuff. So
at least he realised he was a dick.
Yeah, and also I think he realised we were prepared to jump off stage and go for it, because we were. But yeah, like that just rolled, and then I guess we became at that point the new sort of Triple J group that they were prepared to support. We were young and hungry. We were rapping at a really high level. The accent was my accent, which is kind of neutral, so it was a bit palatable to the ear. But that, I think, helped leads the bridge to the acceptance of a more Australian accent on radio instead of it being made fun of all the time.
Yeah, man, on this show all the time people talk about The Calling and what Hilltop Hoods did, but I'd always remind them that you guys were getting commercial radio play before that happened.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it took having to go to the level of what we then did with Karma. And writing Karma was crazy because my brother hadn't left yet, but I wrote the whole song. I was 19 when I wrote Karma. I was living in some little apartment in Camberwell. And we had just been looking after an artist named Pumpkinhead. He was a freestyle MC. He was like world champion freestyle MC, and he was doing tours just freestyling. He was incredible. And that was through Slingshot and that whole crew up in Sydney. They used to put on great events. And we were looking after Pumpkinhead. We'd drive him around, and we were just like his homies. He just loved hanging out with us. And when he was leaving, he was like, "Hey, I want to give you this tape." I was like, "What's this?" He's like, "This is the shit. It's like the album's coming, but this is the tape that you can get. It's an album group called Black Star, and this homie Mos Def and Talib, you got to listen to this tape." So I would listen to that tape and lost my shit.
Before it came out?
Wow. So I had like an early sampler version of the album on tape, and I was just playing it. And I was already doing stuff that leans towards that sound because I'd been influenced by a lot of melodic stuff and, like Arrested Development and stuff they were doing, the melodic elements. Me and my bro were already really into that, but also rapping hard and rapping about subjects and how to do it, but I hadn't quite tied it. And when I heard the Black Star album, I went, there it is. That's how you tie it together. Mm-hmm. It's just go all in and do it. So next thing you know, I've got all these ideas and melodies. I'm washing dishes in the house, and the chorus comes to my head while I'm playing the loop that Peril had put together, and I wrote the song and freestyled the first half of the first verse, wrote the rest, started with the chorus, and finished writing the song really quick. And it was one of these ones where I was like, I feel like, should my bro sing on it? Should he sing the hook? I said, I kind of want this one for myself. I want this to be my first song that I've just done, Mm-hmm. You're 19, you want to figure out who you are. And so later, once we went and recorded it properly and did it all properly, and it's like 2 years later, we'd been performing it. But
you sat on it for that long?
Yeah, like what do you do? How do you put it out?
Yeah.
You just keep performing. You don't have a deal. You don't have anything.
When you first rapped the song for Peril over his beat, did he go, got something here?
I think I was the only person who really thought it was special and knew within myself that I'd tapped into something else. Mm-hmm. I think everyone liked it. They're like, yeah, it's cool, it's chill, yeah, it's nice. And I'm like, I think this is really fantastic. And then when it updated and the production went up and then the guitar solo came in with Simon's stuff and we figured out from the hey, yeah, yeah bridge to shouting out at all the states.
That's a big part, I reckon.
That was massive. To be like, let's shout out. I remember I was like, we need some sort of shout out. And people was like, just shout out Australia. And I was like, Melbourne. Because I already had yeah, 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 yeah all through that section. Sydney, yeah, yeah. I was like, okay. Went and did that and did the intro, calm, what goes around comes around, right, just off the cuff. And then when we sent it overseas, because at this point now, getting more distribution companies interested in helping. Uh-huh. So we never signed to a major, but Sony became our distributor. So we had the distribution chain.
It's huge.
But we're an independent. Yeah, but with a major distribution. There are a few other companies you could go with, like Mushroom and a few others, but we felt like we could trust because the guy who signed us had been a drummer in a band that Peril had played in once. So he's like, I know this guy, I feel safe. So I really didn't want to sign, but I signed. Yeah. And then they helped us. They gave us some access to some funds, which you have to pay back, but access to funds for like some visual content and this and that. I happen to know a young man who I'd been friends with now a couple of years, who'd been coming to our shows. And I was like, you guys are wicked. And he's working on films and ideas and talking about concepts. And I call him one day upstairs from Central Station. Peril's downstairs working. And I was like, yo, MG, I've got this idea for a music video. It's like a puppetry show, like Punch and Judy, but I'm like a storyteller and Beryl and Kem are Punch and Judy characters. You know, they fight, and the brother's always fighting those two. But they could fight all the time about karmic-based stuff. And he was like, huh? Hang on, I'll call you back. He calls me back with the whole pitch, the whole idea, the visual, explains what he can do, CGI. I'm like, what's CGI?
Had you played him the song?
He had seen it.
Oh, okay, he'd seen it live.
Yeah, he'd seen it. Me, him, MG, Ollie, OEC, Oliver Cole, who I actually made a dope record with, but never came out. It's kind of just annoying. My fault, really. But we were all kicking it. Interestingly, MG has just made a film now. I'll get to that. So we make the music video, comes up with the concept. It's sick. We do it. I'm my own puppet. I'm doing my own puppetry.
You know this is going to be the lead sort of single now?
Well, everyone's now going, that song's hot. And I've been saying, I think this is the song. And everyone's always vibing out. And we're like, this could be the tune. And, you know, Imperial had to bat and fight hard to convince the distribution company that we had songs.
Right.
Like, they're like, I think. And it's like, you don't think, you're a major. Just do what you do and allow us. If you think, you're going to think money. And we think art. Can you please just let us do it? All right? And so he fought for that because they would have had us in there writing jingles, right? And fair enough, they're trying to make money. Yeah. But that's not what we do. We don't make money. So, yeah, we get the video done. It's crazy. Everyone's talking about it. Remember Heath was in town for something and he came around to my joint. He's like, yo. I said, what's up, bro? He's like, yo, man, I'm in town. I was like, I know. I said, we going out? He goes, no, I want to see the video. I was like, the video? He goes, yeah, I heard about it. Oh, okay. So we go upstairs, watch it. Buzz. He's like, this is fucking crazy. Who did this? MG? You mate? MG? Oh, I guess I remember him. Yeah, cool. Because he would come to shows and bring in like half a cast if he was in Australia filming. He'd just roll through.
Awesome.
So there was all that buzz.
Yeah.
How do you know? He's like, well, go to kindergarten. Like, just my mate, leave us alone. You know? And so there was a buzz. And then when it dropped, you know, it was the hottest thing. It was possibly the hottest video in the world. The only thing hotter, and the reason we didn't get the Grammy Best Video nomination international was because Holly Valance had made that video, Kiss Kiss or something, where she looks naked in it.
Oh,
and
wow.
Look, it was shot well, and she's so beautiful. She was so beautiful. She probably still is. And I was friends with Holly, so I was just like, good on Holly. But if it wasn't for that, karma gets there, you know? Yeah. And the video is crazy. So we end up, I think the song was really good. It was one of those situations where the video made the song even better.
Yep.
Sometimes videos do that.
And Channel V, MTV, at this point is really pushing that sort of stuff. So that helps incredibly.
They're buzzing. Well, you give them a really good song, a crazy visual, and then a band who can back it up. And then the three of us actually look like the characters in the video. We with my crazy dreads, and we're exactly what they saw. So when we turn up and play, it's like, that's what we just saw.
Yeah.
And it was wild, you know, that whole run, rocking up to venues, being like, where are these people going? They're coming to our show. Like, what's going on? You know, and it was amazing. It was an amazing period of time. You know, we would see, I think I was bumping like a lot of certain hip-hop groups at that point, a lot of Coolism I'd be listening to. What's that album, the Left Foot, Right Foot album?
That's the first one,
Yeah, I was listening to that a lot. There were certain albums I liked. A lot of stuff that was coming out here I didn't like. I still don't like it. I appreciate it. Just don't like it. Don't want to listen to it. It's fine. There's a lot of hip-hop today I don't like. Just don't like it. Appreciate it. But there were certain Australian records I liked, and I'd listen to them.
Left Foot, Right Foot, Coolism.
Yep. I enjoyed what Catalyst was doing. Still love what he does. When did Avalanches drop? Loved all that. Yep. I used to hang out with Dexter, his brother Kuya. Rest in peace. I love Kuya. We became really tight. He used to DJ for me a lot. So there was a whole really cool movement downside over in Perth and a few other crews around. I liked what people were doing. So I was always shouting them all out in interviews. Like, you should be checking this, la, la, la. I don't remember ever getting shout out back, but I used to shout everybody out.
Did the scene embrace you after the success?
Yeah.
Or they did?
Yeah.
Or has it become a bit tall poppy syndrome?
Well, there was always that. There was always that. There was an embracing, but there was also a sort of, you could sense an envy and a sense of wanting us out the way everywhere.
But they're not appreciating that you're kicking the door down as far as having local rap on the radio?
It's hard to say because I'm in it. So I can see the innuendo in eyes and things that people might not see, I see. And they'll be like, no, I was always like, nah, bro. I remember your move like this when, and this happened, like things I see. Maybe I'm just super paranoid, but I'm not particularly paranoid. So, but there were like interviews in radio where people trying to set us up to fight and argue. There were things they were doing to make fun of us that sometimes we wouldn't realize till later.
They're baiting you.
So much baiting. You have a conversation and they might ask you about a thing. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to talk about that. And then they might ask later, so what? And I'm like, oh, and then they would write about it. And just all kinds of things. And there was a lot of disdain for the fact that I was hanging out with Heath. People like, who? It's like, it's just my mate. Like, chill out. Or who are you to win a medal at national championships and go to Kathy Freeman's Christmas party? I'm like, it's just what I do. Like, what are you talking about? Who are you to? I'm me. Like, whereas I needed to be like, who am I? Tell you who the fuck I am. I needed to be that guy, but I wasn't him yet. I was still just like, I don't know. I'm sorry. You know, very different person, full of talent, but I'm sorry. I don't mean to get in the way. I just
because you're still young.
Yeah, but because I hadn't had that voice tell me, you can say, hey, go tell somebody to go. It's like stand it, be. You know, I didn't have that outwardly. I was very, very sweet kid.
With the success of 1200, when that really pops off and you are the biggest, you know, hyped up band at that point in time in the country, you still, I'm guessing, feel kind of somewhat guilty because your brother's not really part of that core group anymore.
Yeah, very much. I feel guilty about that.
I'm not saying you should. I'm just guessing that's where you...
I was.
Yeah.
I felt guilty about anything that made anybody feel bad or anything that people could pick at me at, you know, because it wasn't hardcore. And I was just like, I don't understand. Like, I can rap my ass off. I can write songs. Like, let's just keep making music and let's have fun. And, you know, it was just weird. It's a lot of poppy stuff. Just a lot of weird, unnecessary negative energy that led to so many negative things that weren't particularly inside the group. It was just other stuff that swirls and makes things really hard. And I think navigating that for any group is the hardest part. I think the groups that are the most successful just can stay quite insular or have a really good understanding of what each person needs within a group. Like, this person needs time and space to themselves. This person likes this person is that, versus we all have to be the same. Or if there's something we don't act on it, we talk to it. You know, there's a lot to manage in a band. It's such a full-on relationship.
Yeah, but I guess once the success hits, a lot's expected of you to tour, of festivals.
Loved it.
Yeah, and you loved all that. You loved that part of it.
I wanted more.
Right.
That's all I wanted. Like, there were shows and tours we didn't do, and I'm like, why aren't we going over to this place? Why can't we go there? So that's all I wanted. If they'd said, let's uproot and move to Berlin for a year, I would have. If we uproot and moved to New York I would have. Anyway, I was all about it. Yeah. That's all I wanted.
But then once you start becoming successful, I guess a lot of people want to slice it. A lot of people other labels are putting their 2 cents in. Are you getting pressure from other, you know, people trying to sign you? We want the next record, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, there was definitely pressure for the next record. I think Perl bared the brunt of most of that because he chose to versus just sharing it.
So he was sort of the unofficial manager or the sort of kind of...
He's used to doing everything himself because he was a solo graffiti, you know, so he would do so much. And some of it I don't think he had to do. There was a lot of pressure on him, you know. I didn't really understand just like how much there might have been at that point.
Because he's a fair bit older than you at this stage as well.
Yeah, I was a lot younger. But to me, it's like make beats, write songs, record them, make visuals, tour.
And you feel like you cracked the code at this stage as well. You're like, you can do that. I can do we've worked it out how it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I'm also like super free spirited. Like, I'm going away for a month. What? I'm just going away. I'm taking all the music. I'll come back with an album. You know, I'm that kind of kid. I just take off and go places and just a weirdo, you know. So probably confusing. I'm super quiet as well at this point. I'm still really quiet. I was pretty quiet, like full of life and very friendly, but quiet, very, very quiet with my feelings and not very good at expressing
Very different to how you are on stage.
Very, very different. Because
That happens a lot.
well, on stage, I'm doing this thing. Off stage, it's me and what do I think? I'm not sure. Haven't sat down and written a manifesto of what I think and feel. Should have, you know. So, yeah, it's an interesting part. There was a lot of pressure on him to deliver. I always wanted to do less. Like there are certain songs that made our albums where I was like, I think there's 5 that shouldn't be on here. They're not done. They're not right. But they'd end up on there. I've always felt like we should have done less because some of them I didn't perform well or write well. I'm like,
that label pressure. That's just.
I don't know. I just definitely didn't want some songs on the records. Right. But it's like, well, you made it, you rapped it, and I'm like, yeah, but I didn't do a very good job. I'm like, do we have to, you know? And that happens.
Forever now.
Yeah, it's out there. But at the same time, I'm like, well, yeah, you can listen to one of my not so good verses and one not so good songs, and these are my good ones. But you know, you don't know. You're just trying to do your thing. But I loved all the touring. I loved the shows, the festivals, meeting all these artists, rolling around with these super duper bands, Metallica, cruising around, Mars Volta. You know,
crazy.
I remember eating at the big day out in the food hall. I was just eating by myself because again, I just go off and do my own thing. I'm on my own clock. I'm weird. Going off and eating, and I think Peril and Kem didn't want to eat. They were doing something else. I don't know where Richie was. Richie C is our drummer, Rick Cordy. And I'm sitting there, and these guys sitting over the other table like, hey, man. I'm like, hey, guys. I'm like, yo, you sitting alone? It felt like some food hall thing. I was like, yeah. You want to sit with us, dude? And I was like, these guys sound Californian or something. I was like, oh, okay. What's up? And I'm like, oh, that's the guys who played after us. That's the fucking Mars Volta. That's crazy. I'm like, hey, what's up? They used to be in Taxi, right? I can't remember what the Taxi, I forget the name of the group. Something's wrong in my head. But so I sit and talk with them. They're all lovely. Eat, you know, so you start meeting all these different people. Flash forward to I'm in LA staying at this house in this industrial zone with a friend, connections with music peeps. And this artist, Mia Doi Todd, I'm staying at her place, and she's like, her and her boyfriend, and they're like, some friends are coming over for a barbecue. Are you cool to hang out? I was like, yeah, sure. So we're hanging out, and in comes Mars Volta, and they're like, dude. I'm like, dudes.
How many years later was that?
Oh, a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 years. Mm-hmm. I bumped into their drummer on a beach in Malibu, just walking, like there's a guy walking. I'm like, John? You know, so there was a lot of that cool sort of stuff. Hung out with the Black Eyed Peas a lot.
And that was, I try to explain this to younger crew. Black Eyed Peas used to be so different.
So different.
Like Bridging the Gap, I love that album.
Behind the Front.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then they went, Fergie joined, and then it all changed.
Yeah, it all changed. I must say, though, to do it and succeed is nearly impossible. It's phenomenal what they did. It's absolutely phenomenal to be able to go, we're going to pivot like this, and it worked. Because if it fails, but it worked.
I almost wish that they just picked a different name to do all that stuff. Do you know what I mean?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Something else Peas. And it's wild because I remember seeing them at stadium shows, and they'd do joints and jams. Which was like, and like, this is for the heads who've been with us from the start. They'd rock it, and I'm like, oh, that's the joint, that's the jam, and I'm watching, and the crowd's just not getting it, and they were even realizing, wow, we're really not there anymore. Because that era was so dope, and what they were doing musically and putting together. But I hung out with them a lot of like after shows, just kicking it, back at the hotel, talking, drinking, freestyling. You know, I have nothing but good things. Personally, I haven't had anything but good experiences with Will. Yeah. Will's just been unreal. Even when I bumped into him and hung out in LA, I've called him in LA and he's turned up to a joint just to get me in and left.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm at the Do-Over. The Do-Over is a Sunday afternoon jam. Aloe Black would be the MC host. Yep. He's with Maya Jupiter at this point. Maya Jupiter and he met when he was on tour. I was kind of there when they first met. I've hung out with them in a bunch of different places, even in at Montreux Jazz Festival in Switzerland and stuff. And it's just been crazy because I've watched their relationship. But he's emceeing, Peanut Butter Wolf's in there, Madlib, all that kind of crew. It's such a jam that the windows are all open. It's such a good vibe. So people are in the street in the line, but they're just happy in the street because they're like,
it's Sunday Arvo.
Sunday. They're just happy because the music's blaring out into the street. Yeah. And there's a vibe on the street, so no one cares. And I'm standing there by myself from Australia looking up at the Hollywood Hills and stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to stand on the street. Who can I call? I'm like, I wonder if he's still on this number. Will.
You just saved his Will?
And I call. I've told this story on stage a couple of times and at workshops. Hello? I'm like, hi, Will? Yeah. Will, it's Enfa from Australia, you know, from 1200s and Big Doubt and all that. Oh, what up? What are you doing? What are you doing in America? I said, I'm just here. I'm doing some stuff. I'm kicking it with Heath and doing some this and that. And he's like, cool. He's like, what's happening? I'm like, I'm at you're not at the do-over by chance, are you? You're not inside the do-over. I'm out the front. I'm just hoping you might be inside so you can get me. And he's like, nah, wait a minute though. He hangs up. And I'm like, okay. So I'm standing there. I reckon within about 5 minutes, I hear like this Harley engine. Boop, 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 boop. And it's the tricycle one that he drives in the music video with the long handlebars and stuff. And he pulls up and there's a perfect spot right in the front. Just happens to be a perfect spot. Pulls up on the opposite side of the street. And I'm standing there watching. I'm like, what the fuck? This guy's making money now. Good on him. And then he gets off. He takes off his helmet. Does his thing. Doesn't look at me. It's like, you're me. Does his thing. He gets off. Crosses the street. Walks straight past me. I'm like, damn. Imagine, right? Walks straight past me. I'm like, fuck. He stops and he turns around and he's like, you coming? So
he doesn't even say hi.
No, but the whole point was he got me. He walks past me and instead of me going, I was just like, but he stops, turns back, you coming? And I was like, you got me, bro. He's like, what up, dude? And he walks me in and goes around, says what up to everybody, Mad Lib, everyone. They're like, my boy, and they were like, what's up? I'm meeting them all. Like, this is crazy. And I see Aloe and all the rest. And he's like, after about 15 minutes, walked and talked. He's like, I gotta go. I was like, you leaving? He's like, yeah. Like, oh, you just got me in? He's like, yeah. Peace. And he bounces.
Wow.
So he's always been like that dude.
Yeah.
To me, just always interesting. And all the stuff he's doing with tech, all these things he's gone on to. Like, you can't become that guy if he doesn't transition and think beyond music. And something
at his core, he's still a hip-hop head.
Oh.
But he just wanted to take it in a commercial direction that he couldn't have done within the realms of hip-hop.
Yeah, I think he also just gets bored really fast and is really interested in new things. And he's like, I can do that. I want to try that. I can do that. I want to try more housey stuff. I can do that. I want to try.
Yeah. Have you seen the BMW that he's done? That's crazy, man.
Yeah. Is it Mercedes or BMW?
Well, yeah.
One of those.
One of them.
It's wild. But that's what I mean. He's just that kind of person. I mean, when we used to freestyle up in the hotel room, like after Falls Festival and stuff, I was up there freestyling for ages one night. And with all, I was a Motley crew and all that. I was on one that night. Oh my God, because them boys were like, yo. Like, yeah, it's wild. I've had some good freestyle sessions. They're all but not on film. But he had just started making beats. So, and the guys were hanging out, George Bahon Jr., Terence Yoshiaki, all the guys, they're all like, man, he just started. And like, you know, he's been dabbling, but like he's just started on this laptop thing. And like the thing with him, it's annoying. You show him something, he can do it better than you the next day. And just went on to see what he did. And, you know, I still was tight with a lot of the Peace crew. I still am. Yeah. Just good people, man. So, yeah, you know, people have their journeys. Will said something in an interview I saw again this morning where he was talking about the mistake musicians make is trying to make money just off their songs, because the whole point is the music is an opportunity to sell a thing. Showers and everything, you guys, like you sell tickets to the venue, you sell the t-shirt. They used to make music charts that sell the books, and then people that sell trumpets and instruments that build cathedrals and sell the, you know, you guys, you got to realize that side of it. And so that's interesting. Like I feel like I don't know what I could sell. I don't know. I've got no idea. Maybe I could sell ideas and dreams, who knows, and thoughts. But seeing it from that point of view, you see it a bit differently. Like, yeah, he can make this dope music, but he's interested in other things, and music's an avenue towards it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think he's the kind of dude that would have been successful at whatever he tried, and he just started to do it with music at the start.
Yeah. I mean, the purist in me is like, oh, I just want more of that. But the creative in me is like, I get it. you need to make what's true to you. Like if you look at where, although I'm quite similar in a lot of ways to where I started at 10 and to the albums with my brother, to all the underlying core messaging in my music's always been there. But if you hear there's been change and development, like I haven't had that success, don't get me wrong, nothing like it. But you have to move with where your soul and heart are developing.
For sure. Crazy, man. All right, let's get it back onto your journey.
Yeah.
Well, like, it's
I don't know how we
good
got talking about
It's
this,
always
cats.
a good time to
Well,
talk about
the
Black Eyed Peas and
reason
who I am.
the reason I want to talk about that is because those tours and hanging with them leads to me becoming good friends with their drummer, Terence Yoshiaki.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, yo, if you ever come through LA, hit me up. So the first song I ever wrote out of 1200 Techniques, we hadn't like split or whatever, but it was the first song I ever wrote was with them in LA. And I go and meet up with them, and they're just the nicest people. And they're like, oh, we've got this groove. You got an idea? And I hear, I was like, oh, the groove was so hot. And I was like, left, right, left. I was like, yeah, I got something. And I wrote in the studio and recorded all in one quick session.
As a solo artist.
Just as a rapper who's hanging out with them. Not as anything, just M-Pha.
Yeah.
Hanging out with these guys, let's make a tune.
Yeah.
I don't like hanging out if we're not making music. What are we doing? I don't want to hang out and watch footy and drink beers. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You got a groove? Let's make something. It's just how I was and how I still am to a degree. And that led to Universal King. And that was all based off that relationship. And in fact, that after the 1200s or during that period of writing a solo album, it wasn't really even intended to do a solo album, but a lot of those relationships were forged from big day out festivals. All of it. Roots Manuva, I'd met at another festival when he'd come and he played in Sydney, this festival in Bondi, I forget what it's called right now. It was cool. We met. He came to Melbourne and I took him out to all the spots, all the peril spots. We kicked it. We did something with Rodney P. that was based off a festival, D-Bridge, all these different things, all these different people I work with. It was all based off festivals and hanging out.
Did you feel that you still had to do the 1200 thing and that would have to be its own thing? Or were you thinking at this time 1200's kind of wrapping up?
I was not thinking 1200's wrapping up.
Okay. So the second album comes out and then what happens?
Second album comes out. I think there were a few steps that happened too fast. Personally. And in hindsight, I think
that comes with success.
Well, no, the steps being, so our goal, I think, was to potentially have our own label at some point and do our own things. But I think the goal to get there might have been a bit fast I don't know if Peril would think the same. We'd have to ask him. I think he might now. But at the time, he was driven, very driven. I want to do this, this, and this. So he starts his label and starts looking to work with other artists and doing things. And so I'm kind of like, I think we should be doing our own.
Is this Street Elite? Is that what it was?
That's become Street Elite. And I was very much like, I don't understand this. I didn't really voice it because I was like, I guess you could do what you're going to do. But I was a bit like, okay. I just went, okay, that's usually for me is enough. Like, okay. I don't know. But, and his brother was super busy with his clothing label, Extinct. He now has Boyd, Beat of Your Drum. Such good fashion. Oh my God.
Extinct had a retail space on
Brunswick Street.
Yep.
Next to Atomica. Well, the Boyd's shop is on Brunswick Street, across the road and back towards the city just a bit. He's only got better. Simon's only got better at tailoring and designing. It's wicked. And I think as a selector, Peril's only got better at DJing, to be honest. So they're great, good people. They've only got better as people. But at the time, I think it was just too much of a rush. So he got busy with Street Elite, looking for other artists and doing projects. And like a year went by where, by no fault, I don't think, of Peril's or intention, but he just didn't give me any music. And I was just mad, like, I need to write. I'm losing my shit. Yeah. And so I picked up beat CDs on tours and met people and just had stuff. So I started throwing stuff on to write because I didn't want to just write to everyone else's songs. What I should have done, in hindsight, was just written to tracks and gone, I've got an album ready, can we record? That's what I should have done. But I'm like, I write to the beats because that's how I write. I write to the music. So I start putting on things, and there's this beat CD from a kid in Byron Bay I put on. I'm like, ooh, this is hot. And these songs come. Now I can't imagine those lyrics over another beat. And that's a song called Blessings with a 16-year-old kid called Styalz Fuego, right?
Yeah.
And then There's another thing I do. I'm like, ooh, another one of his beats. Ooh, I'm chatting with the guys from Dawn Raid, and because I'd met all the guys through different tours, and I'm like, yo, Decepticons, you want to get on this? Yeah, man. So that becomes Who on Test, another track with Styalz. And then I'm like, oh, I got that song I did with the Cats in LA. And then I go to London to see my bro, and he's like, you got to meet up with SpaceX brother, because I just rocked with him on the mic at a thing. And he's like, you met SpaceX, you should meet his brother D-Bridge. I was in a drum and bass thing with him. I go meet him, and gives me his beat tape, and I write Cause and Effect. I'm like, oh, shit. Now I can't imagine it over anything else. Hang out with this cat called Dobie in London that I'd met who makes beats. I write Get Dough and Two Writtens in a Freestyle. Well, Two Writtens in a Freestyle I didn't write, because it was two writtens in a freestyle. I had two verses, I rapped them, and then I freestyled, right? But I make these things. I don't know what to do with them. I have to put them out or do something.
Are you speaking apparel at this stage?
Oh yeah.
So you're telling them I'm doing this thing, but 1200's still there in the background.
Yeah, I don't know if I was that clear. I felt weird about doing it, but I wanted to experiment.
Felt like you were cheating on him almost.
Yeah, but I wanted to experiment, and there was no music coming to me. He seemed busy. I didn't know how long it would be. I kept asking, but he was just busy. And he had life, he was doing his life. He had nights, he was running things. But I was very much like, if you go first-person character, and his first-person character, he's doing these things. He's doing this label, and that. Oh, Ian's coming, we'll do a show. Oh, he's probably off. Blah, blah, blah. His brother's first character is designing, shop. My first character, washing dishes in a cafe still, because I'm not really making money even at this point out of 1200s.
And people think you're making money, I guess.
Oh yeah, making a bit, but not enough. What I should have done with any money I made was just try to invest it in like some cheap property and kept washing dishes, but couldn't really do that because I didn't have a job. I didn't.
A few acting gigs here and there?
Yeah, but that was early on. I'd been in a couple films, I'd done a few TV ads, that was all cool, but it's not much. I gave all that money to my mom because she was dying and I wanted to help her finish her house. So I just did whatever I could to help her. I got any jobs I could. And then obviously the music was happening, so I was still trying to help. But I was just like, so I sit there, I don't know what to do. So I remember going to Vodka and that, I was like, I've got these songs, I don't know what to do. Can I record some? Can I try some? I feel really weird about it. They're like, oh, you should just make some music. You want to make music? Make some music. What's the matter? Use a studio downstairs. I was like, okay. So I did a bit, but, it didn't go down great that I was doing some stuff. It was a bit like, wait, what's happening? I think people just always thought I wanted to be solo, and I just didn't. A bit like Busta Rhymes, Lit as a New School. I had no intention. I just wanted to make a record and show I could make a record for myself, that I could make a record.
So eventually, do you show the finished thing to Peril when it's done, or what? How does that transpire? He knows that you're making this stuff.
He knows.
He's busy anyway.
He knows he's busy, but he's kind of like, I wish he'd come to me straight away. And I'm like, yeah, I probably should have, but I didn't know if I was going to write some like crap. I just wanted to experiment. I don't know. And then I've made this thing, and I've gone overseas traveling. I've come back with all these songs. It's not like there was no label paying. I just went. I always would buy around the world tickets. I'd crash in LA, go to New York, crash there. I've got different friends. Go to London, and then I might go through Asia somewhere. I had a friend in Korea who I used to hang out with a lot, Jun. And then I come home, and on that trip, just came back with an album. So I was like, I gotta do something. And then, then Heath, we were always hanging out. He was like, this album's wicked. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know. You should put it out. I don't know. Maybe. I'd like to, but I'm not sure. Can I? Maybe I should. I don't know. That's how I felt. I'm 20. I'm 25.
So what do? You've got to try and shop it to labels?
I didn't shop it to anyone.
So how does it get out there?
Well, Vodka, Rubber were down. He was like, I'll help put it out. I probably should have just put it out with Rubber. That's what I should have done. But I wasn't trying to create any issues in-house. So I went and spoke to another group in Sydney just because they were like, I want you to chat to these peeps. And so I hit them up, Inertia, and they were just to distribute it. And I was like, okay, cool. In hindsight now, I probably should have just kept it in-house. I'm going, look, we're keeping it in-house. It is what it is. But Heath wanted to do a video for Cause. He'd done one for one of the other songs. It was a bit too bright for me and colourful. It's not really was the right thing. But
it was his vision.
But it was sick. He delivered his vision. Right. It was sick. But I don't know if the vision was and the song that we chose was the right one. It was cool. But, at that point, again, I'm not really thinking solo career, what's it going to be? It's just like, I can't believe this is happening. You want to shoot a video? Are you sure? It was like, very much like that. Because I'm like, I'm going to do 1200s again soon, aren't I?
Yep.
So, you know, but with that all getting involved, everyone's getting involved. I'm like, all right, I've got to take this, really put this out now. Like, geez, okay. So you start rolling it out, and it's cool. Songs start coming out, and that's when I start to experience my first wall within the industry, like sending it to the radios you need to get their support, and they're just like, nah, we're not playing it. It's like, I
Do
don't
they give you feedback?
No, just not. Why? What's
Let's go,
wrong?
thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know Universal King's really good, and I know Cause is really good. I know Blessings is good, and the rest of the album's okay, right? I get it. But those three, you're not going to play anything? It's just not. And I just started experiencing wall after wall. So you try and do a tour. So Perils drops his record around the same time, and we're both trying to tour, and he's getting a little bit of play for a couple of songs, but not enough.
And you've got some tracks on his record as well.
I'm on a verse, I think.
Okay.
A verse. Smashed the verse. It was good.
Your name's in the credits.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, and I was kind of in a state of, I want to kill everyone on this record. Like, it was a bit of that. Like, anyone who's rapped on this record has sung on it. No, watch this one verse. Mm-hmm. That's how I felt like we should just be doing our stuff. So I'm thinking that about him doing his record. He's thinking the same thing about me doing mine. But I'm like, let's just get together and do another one. You know, it's that kind of thing. But we're just not discussing it.
Right.
And yeah, so we do a bit of tour, but it's not really working because radio's not playing. You know, we'd do a show and then go out in the street after, go for a walk down like Rundle Mall, and people would be coming up like, yo, what are you doing here? And it's like, hey, I played, you know, like it wasn't.
Because you don't have the 1200 name attached to it?
Yeah, it's Peril or it's Empho or it's, people like to buy the brand, they like the name. Yeah. It's very important. So I never even went hard on what's my rap name really going to be, what I want it to be from the start to the end. You know, because I don't know, it's rapping stuff. Yeah. So it's something I always tell artists, like, really consider this at the start. Consider these things so that if you do branch, you know, Outkast, Andre 3000, Big Boy, the whole time. So when Andre does a record, it's not like, but I just want Outkast. It's like, it's that name, you know, Ice Cube's a brand. So when he goes from it, it's not weird. It's like definite thing. Whereas there are other groups I can think of, where the name of the artist in them aren't as clear. So when they go solo, it's tricky. But yeah, I just made a record, and I wanted to do another 1200s record. And, you know, I'm not going to get into it, but it led to this isn't really going to happen. And that was that. And we always thought it would. I was just like, we'll get around to it. But then something happened, and then, we'll get around to it. And then Heath and I hanging in LA a lot, and we start playing a not-for-profit label. The first group we were going to work with was a group called Edward Sharp and the Magnetic Zeros.
Yeah, I remember him, yeah.
So I have Home and a few other songs on his demos that he made.
He had that
Alex
Truth
Ebird.
song.
He's got great songs.
Great track, yeah.
Yeah, so Alex, I have some of his demos, how he was making them before they became the finished product. Same songs. Mm-hmm. So we had these plans, and then obviously Heath passes, and that's a shocking, crazy thing because we've been in discussions the whole time leading up to it. We're planning things and all this stuff. And I'm watching media make it into something it's not, having to deal with all that. So just all these things kept happening that stopped the 1200s plan. Mm-hmm. And I was so sensitive that anything that was said or anything around Heath or whatever would just spin me out and spin me off. If it was said the wrong way, I could be talking to anyone, but like, if I was, say, talking to Peril about something in the way he would phrase a sentence I didn't like, I wouldn't want to talk to him for 6 months.
And that would happen?
Oh, with anyone, though, because I was just a mess. I needed counselling. Uh-huh. Yeah. When your best mate dies and
of course.
Your group...
Did you get counselling?
Counselling?
Did you get counselling?
Later.
Right.
Too late.
But you couldn't, yeah.
Yeah. When your band that you believe in and everything you're about goes, you've been running and that goes, your brother's gone, your mom's getting sicker, and you're broke again, and you know your best mate dies, and all the rest of it. It's hard to just be like, yeah, well, everything's cool. So I mean, there's a couple records I made that haven't come out. One called Voltage Stomp, which is basically just me in that state. It's pretty wild where I was at, very, very dark and depressive.
And you made that just for a cathartic experience, not with the intention to put it out, just because you needed to do it.
Here's the thing. Everything I've ever done was cathartic. 1200s is cathartic for me. It's not a career. It's not a a band to make money. Cause and Effect wasn't to be solo. It's a cathartic expression. Black and White Noise, cathartic expression. Cool Out Sun, it's cathartic. Everything is. Right. Everything I do is related to that. Nothing I've ever done has been to make money. There's been a couple singles I did put out that were like, oh, this could work. But I was always like, I don't know. I shouldn't put these ones out because of this reason. It doesn't. But the writing of the song at the time was cathartic. So...
Yeah. No, well, yeah. Well, that's you, but because you're a true artist at your core, you're doing it because you want to do it for artistic purposes, not for any monetary gain.
Yeah, like that's, and to a detriment. Like I wish I'd thought a bit more about money, or had people around me who thought money, or understood money. Like our manager at the time, I'm good friends with him, Andrew Parisi, not related to Michael Parisi. He was a good manager. He was a decent manager. He was a lot younger. The person he is now is who I needed then. I needed the 50-year-old.
Yep.
Then, not the 30-year-old version. Because now, with all that hindsight, he's an incredible manager. He stepped away from managing, but he ended up in it by accident and now manages one of the biggest bands in the world, Amyl and the Sniffers.
Yep.
You know, so...
They do a lot of shows, man.
But without our journey and him being in that, maybe he's not... doesn't have the hindsight and the knowledge to do it because he's in a great place. So like we chat, he went to London, he got a ticket for my brother to come into the Amyl show like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And my bro's there. He's like, I finally get to meet you, bro. You know, so like, we're all tight still. I still see Peril, still love him. Go to see his brother all the time at the shop. You got to go check out his clothes.
I will.
But yeah, it's always a slightly sad thing. For me, the biggest atrocity or the biggest letdown for me, about 1200's ending. The obvious one is, I'd probably be really wealthy, right? Probably, given all the other groups that were around are pretty well off. There is also the possibility that this is the version where I'm alive. Maybe on the other version, we all die in a car accident on tour in 2006. Yeah. You never know. Mm-hmm. We all just assume the best, right? So maybe this is the version where I'm alive. But for me, the biggest one is 1200 Techniques represented the multicultural diversity in Australian hip-hop. We flung that flag hard and high. And no offense to anybody else. And Suffer would agree, for example, and so would Bliss and that. They'd be like, yeah, we know. They're not about all of it, but they see it and they know what it is. So they'd be like, yeah, man, your jams were like this. So we'd have a party and it was so dope. Everyone was welcome. You get Obese Crew coming through. You get all the uni kids coming through, all the cool Asian crew, all the few black mixed kids were coming through, the early dabbles of the few Sudanese kids that were around. There hardly any here yet. I remember in Perth when I used to go out, there was no African kids, and one day South Africans moved and there were suddenly brown kids around. So I've seen all this happen, but what I feel would have happened is maybe the name and our imagery stays out there so that the youth coming up can see something that's like them, that they then relate to. Maybe I have certain foundations now. Maybe there's certain things like that happen. And so instead of that weird era of, sorry, but really macho, quasi-racist, sexist, hip-hop that happened in Australia. I don't know what words are. There was an era that was fucking eerie. That happens still, but there's a balance on the other side. So when artists have to now come up and fight to get through, it's like, no, we already got all there. Now we have to start again. Yeah. And so there's a better balance. And that's the thing that bothers me the most about the 1200s is that possibility. Now, if radio had supported and played the solo stuff, if they'd played more of Diafrix and other groups that were around, sure, maybe they were good enough, the music was good enough, but the opportunities just weren't presented. It was just like, no. It was wild. But with 1200s, there is no. We're already there. And that creates the opportunity for others to see in a path that doesn't get forged. That's the main thing for me that bothers me. It's not, would I still be famous or how much money, it's the visual and cultural aspect.
And I guess you can look at the positive that it's not like you put out a record that failed and ended the whole thing. It just sort of petered out.
Yeah, we just thought we were going to take a slight break and come back. I didn't want to take a break at all. It's just that's the way it went. And there were certain conversations that just led to that. And instead of me going, rah, and fighting, I just buttoned up and quietly walked off, which isn't great when you're dealing with very charismatic peeps who you have to be loud with for them to get it, you know. So a lot of it's just communication. It's no one's fault. It's everybody's fault. It's the label's fault. It's managers. It's distribution. It's friends. It's family. It's us. It's me. And that's all. But again, like I say, maybe this is the version where we're alive.
Would you ever consider making a record again?
We tried.
Really?
Yeah, we made an EP. At first, it was going really cool. Ghostface Killer even got on a track.
Wow.
And a song called Flow is Trouble. But I think, again, the pressure, I think Beryl had so much pressure to make a good thing that I think he kind of might have worked too hard on it. I think maybe slightly just going beyond what the songs needed. Because his remix of Flow is Trouble that he did in a half hour is amazing. It's the best thing that we did as a group is actually his remix, which is annoying because Simon's not on the guitar in it, but the remix is stunning. It's stunning. It's like one of the hottest pieces of hip-hop. Me, Flo, and Ghostface kills it, but the beat's just nuts. So I think it's important with people when you do projects is not to have any pressure. And I feel like with 1200s, there's that expectation of it has to be a certain thing, and what's that thing going to be? So when we're trying, we just didn't quite gel like we did, and I'm so far elsewhere now. I'm just so far elsewhere.
Yeah, well,
that
you've
it's
matured
hard.
and it's...
But here's the kicker. Beryl and I did a duo set at this Hip Hop 4E festival in Sydney last year. We did about a 45-minute set. He was on decks and percussion. I was on the mic. And we have about 45 minutes of hotness that we can just rock like that. With not even guitar, no drums. If Simon had been there on guitar, it would have been sick. I like the drums, but I like, personally, I'm my favorite, even though I love when Rick's on drums because he's so good. And it's better for festivals, but I really just like the decks playing the tracks, guitar with an amp, me rapping and percussion, and that's it. Just the three of us. I love it. And we smashed it, and I was like, man, that was so good. It can't be hard to write another 25 minutes of decent music, just lo-fi and rough and rugged, and tour this with like 3 of those songs added in. It's an hour set, like, you know. But time, family.
Everyone's in different spots.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to do. And it's wild because we see these tours. Like I was talking with Simon Kempstar about it the other day, and I've talked to Peril about it. They're always like, man, we see Spiderbait and Jebediah and all those guys on those tours. Like, we should be on this. I'm like, we should be. And, you know, because even though they rock, it's the same crowd that we used to play to.
For sure.
They'd dig it.
Yeah, man. Well, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, when we get together and play, it is fun. And it's really cool for me as an MC. I'm sure Peril feels it as a beat maker and Simon as guitarist, how good the beats were for the time, actually, and the guitar riffs. But for me as an MC, some of those lyrics are still hotter than some of the lyrics I spit now. I'm like, man, I was on some shit at 19 and 20 and 21. And it's fun rapping them to audiences and sometimes crews that are older. And they're like, oh, that verse is hot. And then they realize, oh, man, that's that verse from 25 years ago. Whoa, he was all right, you know. But for me, you know, 1200s, it's crazy that I get to be a part of history through a friendship formed with me and my brother, with 2 other brothers. Because Simon and Peril are brothers, Gabar and myself brothers. And that led to this thing. I wish it could have gone further, but if our job was to create the landing, then that's what we made.
Man, and yeah, like I said, it didn't peter out. It wasn't something that brought it to an end. So you can just be proud of that, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was weird because, again, we always just thought we'd do another and another, but things just kept turning up. Things just happening. Then I was planning on coming back for something, and then I'm having my girlfriend, my lovely French girlfriend at the time, we're like, oh, we're having a little one, so now I'm moving back to France, and just always something. So life, I'm like, I got to stop fighting this path I'm meant to go on.
Well, that's it. Yeah, you've got to just follow where it leads you.
Yeah.
So then, on your musical journey, is this kind of where you meet Sensible J's? He's not far from that sort of thing.
Yeah. So Sensible J's in the crowd at the big day out, going, I like this rapper. He's all right. Sensible J's at the bar when I'm bussying. he's like, oh, that's that guy who raps who's been on some TV stuff. And we should say hello to him, but doesn't. So there's years where we would have already been friends because his personality is perfectly matched for my personality.
He's kind of shy.
Not shy.
Not shy.
Reserved.
Reserved. Okay. Yep.
He's not shy. He's reserved and very polite and considerate of others. So, and he'll discuss, but he'll tell you if he's unhappy, and he does it in a way that just totally matches my personality. And he brings out the best in my personality. He doesn't lean me towards any negatives or doing things wrong that you get into when you're younger and you're out and you're like, oh, stupid stuff. He's like, why would you? My mate Ollie was the same. He's like, why would you? But with Jay, very much. And so we eventually meet at a New Year's Eve gig that I'm playing at. A friend of mine was doing a show, and he had some great artists coming up, and I was a guest, but Jay was playing with his group. I think it was the Beans at the time. And I'm weird like this, but I looked at Jay and I just liked his face. I just looked at him. I was like, I like his face. He reminds me of like guys I grew up with. I wonder if he's like South African or Mauritian or something, you know? He looks like that sort of light brown. Yeah, I reckon. I'm going to go say what's up because I'm like that. So I go over, hey, man, what's up? He's like, hey, dude. I was like, oh, he wouldn't have said dude. He hates that word. He said, hey, man. And so what you doing? He goes, oh, I drum. I said, oh, cool. Just saying what's up. My name's M-Phazes. You. All right. Peace, man. He's like, that's weird. He's nice. And that just led to then later, I think I was going to a gig and maybe we chatted and he's like, oh, I'll be at that Fly Low gig or whatever. I'll see you there. So I'm there, he's there. And then his girl yells, comes up because he's like, oh, can you give me the CD of beats? So she comes up and goes, you remember Jay? Yeah, he makes beats. I was like, oh, word, yeah, he mentioned something. He goes, yeah, take this. And it took me about a week and a bit till I had time to press play and put it in my car, and I nearly crashed.
Wow.
I was just like, what is this? And like he had all these cool sample ones that were sick, and then it got to a point, and then it was just all his crazy electronica vibe, banging stuff, and that's where I really lost my mind. I met up with him and the Dutch, who was a duo. It was Jay Smith and the Dutch originally. I started calling him Sensible Jay, and it all changed.
You gave him that name.
Yeah.
Cool.
And House of Beige.
Yeah.
House of Beige, and because we were talking crap once, and so, someone was like, "Oh, it's like the House of Beats." I was like, "Nah, House of Beige with this beige mark." I started talking all this shit. I was like laughing. I was like, "Nah, but the House of Beige, you know." But yeah, Sensible Jay, 'cause he's so sensible. I'm like, yeah, he's Sensible Jay. But yeah, I wrote an album with them in 2008. This is a terrible thing. I wrote an album with them in no time in 2008, and then in 2009, the project I was doing called Dreamcatchers with Ollie got major label offers in the UK, and I was not sure. I was like, I'm not sure if this project's cooked, finished enough for that, but maybe, I guess we go. So we go, but then the major label crash happens. Major labels and all that. There was a crash.
Because of the internet.
And a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So we were over there. We end up getting this singer named Will Young, who was like the first UK's Got Talent winner, who we worked a lot with MG, who did the Karma video. He ends up singing a hook on one of the songs we had written. And then Yoshiaki remixes it in LA, because they're all just friends talking, and this super monster, Where Is the Love type song comes out of it. And like everyone's like, oh, about to sign it. I had this interesting version sort of 7 seconds, which is weird, from Nana Cherry, which is weird because I'd gone to Sweden to meet this producer Kat who knew Daedalus, who I'd done a song with in LA in Facebook, MySpace, best friends in Daedalus, and I hit him up. He goes, yeah, you can come stay here in Sweden. We got a little house you can stay in. I was like, okay. I roll up and it's Nana Cherry's house.
Wow.
I'm like, I'm trying to keep it cool. I make an apple crumble that evening, you know, but like, so I'm like, oh, I've got this version. I just recorded this song. That's weird. And I play it, you know, and they're like, oh, you should do something with it. And there's all this interest. So we end up in London and with no money, and I'm stuck there. And Ollie comes back. I don't know how to move forward with this project. I've written this dope record with Jay and Dutch that I think's really my best work to date at this point. And I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm doing, and I'm stuck in London. And I eventually get back to Oz, and I'm going back to London to follow up on this other deal. But that doesn't work out, and then France, baby, life change. The album I wrote with Jay and Dutch was Black and White Noise, but it's 2008. If that stuff drops in 2008, 2009, it's about 5 years ahead of everything that drops in 2012. It changes everything, and all the sounds and all the projects they do is all based off that record we made. All the other stuff is based off a record that was already made that never comes out until way later, and we're missing 3 or 4 of the best songs from that record.
So what happened to them?
Me just being a mental case. I was a mental case. Like, there's a song called Before We Die, a song called Robots, and another song that is just nuts. And it was really rough and rugged and unusual, and it should have just been that. So then, you know, I end up back in Oz to do a 1200s project, the one we talked about, but it's not working. Yeah. I got my lady here, got a baby, I'm trying to figure out life. I'm not sure where I'm at with anything, anyone. Is this going to work? Are they going to leave to front? What's happening? You know, all these things. And just really unsure about how to manage life at this point, because everything's getting suddenly very real, and all the trips and falls are now just becoming like, oh, I'm just on the ground all the time. That's just where I am. I don't know if I can keep getting up, kind of thing.
So you're not in the best mental state?
No. And there were other things I haven't got into that helped lead to that. Nothing like drugs or anything. I've never done that, but just things that happen. They're just heartbreaking, and mistakes and things that just are getting me into really terrible places. And so just not having the time to get it together. So coming back out here and then trying to do that. Eventually we do the Black and White Noise. But at this point, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. I actually decided to quit music.
But that's all you've ever really done?
Yeah, I'm quitting this shit. We put out the 1200s EP. Didn't really resonate. I'm like, okay, I've got this cafe. I've opened a cafe. I don't know how I've opened a cafe or why, but I've got this cafe in Northcote, this rock in. It's awesome, but I'm like, I'm going to have to sell that soon before we get stuck. And music's great, but what am I even doing it for? Trying to do all these things. What are the outcomes?
You lost your passion.
I've lost some of the passion. I've been in London. I've left London. The crew I'm hanging out with, Jimmy Napes, who I'm playing all these ideas to, goes and writes Latch, becomes the biggest song in the world. You know Latch? I was hanging with that guy and the whole crew. All my crew out there are doing well, and I've just left that, and I'm like, fuck, where am I going? I'm always in the wrong place. But
you're close to it, though.
Yeah, I'm always in and amongst, and I still see them all, and they're all like, bro, certain people have certain things, and they're great, appreciative for. But again, all of that comes back to my experience with 1200s, and before that, to my brother. So when anyone says, what up, and thanks, it's actually thanks to 1200s and my bro. I just go, thanks, but it's them. I'm just the passing on of the knowledge. And now I feel like I'm in a space, since quitting music, I'm writing much better music, and I'm much happier.
So you officially quit. You stopped. I don't think that you're a person that could not make music for a period.
Yeah. So I quit trying to think about an outcome, and I just was like, I'm not making music. This stuff's terrible, and I don't see the point, and I'm getting old, and who gives a shit? Like, I can out-rap anybody. Give me them. I got them. Outright songwrite anybody. Give me them. You got to have that attitude. I'm watching Sampa the Great coming up, and I'm like, I just want to see that. That's music. You know, that's inspiring. You know, our whole crew, what Jay was doing at the time, I was like, that's just like, maybe I should just be grateful. I had a point a few years earlier where I was like, maybe I should stop and be grateful that I ever had a go. Like, people try and never get to actually have a go. I get to have a go.
You saw success very early.
Oh, really early, but like, I got to train with the world record holder in athletics. I've medaled in the national championships. I've run for Australia and won in an international meet. I got to do that. I didn't get to run at Olympics or Commonwealths or Worlds, but I got to do that. I got to go music and play those festivals. I got to win a freaking ARIA and the Dance Music Awards and all the other ones that were on. I got to go on red carpets and movie sets and
Not
film
only did
festivals.
you win the ARIA, but you guys sort of broke that for the whole hip-hop Australian movement, you know?
Yeah, well, there was no urban. So we won Best Independent. And I think they saw a change in the water and meant we better do something.
But I don't like the word urban. I'm guessing you don't really either.
We didn't. We were like, why don't you just do R&B and hip-hop for now? Because there'll be more. But urban, you're putting us together. Like, how am I meant to compete with a singer? How are any of us meant to compete? Like, And you get some major label R&B singer who could be anything at this point. Like Guy Sebastian was coming up. It's like, come on, like we should be doing independent, but you're going to put us in here. It sucks. Make it the category names, you know? It took 20 years for them to change that. And I helped get the change happen, to discuss and argue about it, but, you know, help with that with our sort of hip-hop R&B board now with Aria.
Yep.
And a few other things.
So you get to help the selection process?
I help make that there's at least a couple of sections, what's expected to a degree. You can only do so much.
Yeah.
But at least they're trying.
Yeah.
But, you know, once I sort of started realizing at least I got to do these things, and I was like, suddenly everything went from like a sort of grey to colour. I could see colour again. And I just was like, I'm just going to focus on my children and work a bit. I'll sell the cafe, might do some language teaching English thing and move to Europe and just be out and be like, man, that was cool. I had a great 20s and even my early 30s was sick. I'm good, I'm done. So what happens next? I get a call from Box Hill Institute. Ben Wiesner, legendary guy who's basically created a crazy situation where he's able to get the old Sing Sing, half of Sing Sing Studios into the Box Hill facility with a few other staff. They build this whole thing. They call me and go, do you want to help write a diploma of music based in hip-hop? I'm like, I can do that. What are you talking about? They're like, no, you're good. You just this and that. There's things you map, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, we've asked Mantra if he wants to be involved, and Diz and Sabrine, and, you know, there'll be 4 elements that are discussed. Not the 4 elements, but 4 elements that are covered, which we brought the 4 elements into. And I was like, that sounds interesting. So I'm like, hey, I'm just going to do this for a year and see what it's like, and then we can go to France. Do that. By the end of that year, I end up taking, there was a start that year, or maybe it's the next year. I end up rewriting the whole thing, but basically by myself, because Serene's on tour with Sampa. Mantra's not really feeling it. Something else is happening. I end up taking over and rewriting this whole thing. And next thing you know, I'm in this world of academia and doing a master's degree to teach higher ed, and I do the whole thing based in hip-hop methods. Accidentally. I'm just trying to leave Australia now and go to France.
We wouldn't let you go.
And I fall into this whole world. And so,
which is cool though, man.
It's unreal. It's completely unreal. And as a part of the process, I'm doing all these different things. I'm getting calls from like the Art Centre to do workshops and chatting with Joel Listics a lot. Because obviously we've known each other over the years, and he hits me up, oh man, I'm doing this thing with Mav. We're doing this event where like we put people with different sort of elements of cultural stuff and they combine it. Is there something you'd want to do that we could put on? Like, I don't know, you've often talked about percussion and African cultural stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I could do a project of like traditional Afro vibes in hip hop. That'd be fun as a one-off thing.
Yeah.
That's not doing music. That's doing a one-off cultural project. Sure. So I call Jay. I'm like, I've got this idea. Been hit up. There's a little bit of funding to do this thing. We need to come up with a set and perform it. And I'm like, but we should record all our ideas so we don't forget, because I'll forget everything. You know me, I have to record. And so he's like, cool. I call up Lamin Sonko, I call up Nui Moon. And we'd always been wanting to do this thing called like African Hustle or something, which ended up being a song instead. But I came up with the name Cool Out Sun, which maybe African Hustle would be better, but Cool Out Sun's cool. And we just started every week for about 10 weeks. We would just get together and record ideas.
And the passion was back.
Well, I was co-writing with Lamin a lot and seeing him as an instrument and seeing him get ideas out of him that he wouldn't do, and understanding how to bring in stuff he does into what I do, and connecting with my culture, like speaking Mandinka and Wolof and Creole and stuff I hadn't really been able to get into because there was no one around when I was coming up who did it, and I didn't have a family around who could give me that languages I would be fluent in now that I'm not. And so it was just this fun creative project of like, oh, this just feels awesome. Yeah. Let's just make this thing. And now it's done, and it's Cool Out Sun, and we're going to do this show. And the show went so well, it was like, I said to the guys, oh, we should probably just like release this stuff. It's too good to put on a drive. We'll just put it out. House of Beige, but just quick and easy. And Jay's like, this was really good. But he was busy with his projects. But he was like, in between, yeah, we could do this. The show went so well, we started getting callings and bookings, and I'm like, what? I'm out. and just before this, I'd written an EP over a whole bunch of songs that Billy Hoyle had produced called Os Afro Sambas, but it was like a secret, just fun project for myself. Alice, she plays piano and sings, and so she comes in and she sings on a few songs, and then I've got my son coming in doing little vocal-y things like he's really little. So I'd done this project for fun, sent it to him, and going, hey man, I just made this for fun. It's a secret thing. He's like, this is good. You should put it out. I'm like, I don't know about that. I'm speaking with Antics, and he's like, after doing an interview a bit like this, he's like, can I help you with it? Send it out to some people. I was like, I suppose. Starts getting played, and I start getting called for shows. I'm like, I'm not trying to do this. Mm-hmm. But because there's no thing attached to it other than purity, it's connecting.
There's no expectation.
Yeah, it's not connecting on a level where I'm going to make money, but it's connecting on those types of shows and those kind of spaces. And so that leads into doing the Cool Out Sun record, and it's like, oh.
And that's getting some rotation as well.
It's getting some spins. The first album's getting some spins. We get asked to play like WOMAD and like what. So we work on a show. We got a rocking show. And I guess we should do another one. And then COVID comes and everything just stops for a bit. And a lot of stuff happens. A lot of stuff happens in our personal lives, and especially in Jay's personal life and things that are happening there. It's not really for me to speak on, but a lot of like shock and heartbreak. And I'm watching the world doing what it's doing, and I'm not wanting to write because all I'm going to write is really
negative shit.
Really negative. And I'm just busy raising my 3 kids and walking on the beach. Just moved down the peninsula. We end up in Switzerland. We end up going back because Alice is losing her mind here with all the really crazy government and restrictions. So we end up back there randomly, France and Switzerland. And I think we're gone this time in 2022. I'm like, we're out. House, it's, you know, someone's in it, we're okay for a minute, but where are we going to live? What are we going to do? And while I'm there, I'm missing everybody, and all these songs start forming. Jay had given me all these beats, couldn't write to anything. I was like, got nothing for a year. Not trying, not sucks, not. And then wrote half the album in this 400-year-old little house on a cliff in Switzerland.
Wow.
Then I was like, we're going back to Oz. I need to finish this, and that, because she was still studying. I'm like, for word? Because we're not going to be able to come back for a bit. We got no money now. It's cost a lot. You know, it's life. But I was loving it because it's like, even though we're losing everything financially, my kids being that young, especially my youngest, being that young and spending time with her aunties and all that, it was now or never. Mm-hmm. Certain experiences had to happen then. I was okay with staying, but the idea of coming back felt exciting. Come back and just bang out this new album really fast with Jay, and then just spend time meticulously finishing things and doing bits. But it was a different record because we were all in different places. Nui's away, Lamin's unavailable. So we brought in a lot of different guests and somehow wrote this album. It's pretty good.
Which you're proud of.
Yeah. Very much. Like every album I make, I always feel like, yeah, it's the best one I've done. Oh, this is better. Or, oh, the other album had that, but this has. And even with this one, I'm like, is it as good as the last one? Is it? And now, but I'm like, I listen, I'm like, no, it's pretty strong. It's pretty good, you know? And just Jay was really pushing me a lot with like, tell your story more. You never talk about it. And I'm like, yeah, because it's fucking depressing. And I don't want to talk about those places. I just want to talk about the bigger picture. And he's like, yeah, but people don't know.
And that's good for your healing as well, man.
Yeah, so there's a lot of more personal depth and thought. It's all there in all my other music. It's just a little bit further in than I'd normally go.
And maybe it's a maturity thing that you're at that point of your life where you are happy to reflect like that.
Yeah, or gain the ability to do it. You know, you hear artists like Ice Cube and other people who rap about it and do it so well, and you think, oh, it's normal. No, those people are freaks of nature. They're Usain Bolts of music. They're phenomenal. And we get to be around them. I'm really good. They're Usain Bolt, you know? Yeah. I might have made a final if I was lucky, or a semi. They're those people, you know?
The new 16-year-old kid that we've got, man, who's running the 200 quicker than you. Go.
Yeah, he's amazing. You know, there's those people. I'm good. I'm not that kid. But if I keep running, I may end up getting there later in another way, you know? So it depends what you want. Is it just winning now, or are you about running all the time? Are you about doing music?
And are you at the stage now where you can live off your music?
No.
And that's the biggest challenge for a lot of artists, because the art suffers.
No. I've lived off music for about 2 years of my life, and I've never lived off music. I've always been working in cafes, making coffee, doing dumb jobs that I could drop. What I should have got into was workshops really early. But no, man,
You
never.
still doing the teaching now as well?
Man, I'll break it down. So I live purely off music-based work.
Yep.
I made a decision once I stopped the cafe. It was called Kalimba. It was really cool. It was really good. We were the first cafe in Melbourne doing savoury waffles. Okay. I don't know if you've ever had savoury waffles, but certain ones do it. I saw some of them come in and eat and be like, And then you start seeing them do it. It's like, they have a guitarist and a drummer on stage, and then they all do it. Anyway, it was wicked. It was so much fun. At the Music Vic Awards, I saw half the clientele. I was like, what? You all used to come to my cafe. I just didn't know they were all musicians.
Yeah.
It was sick. But I made a decision once I started. Once I started the thing with Box Hill, I was like, because I've been thinking, I just want to live off music in any form, any capacity of just working around music. How do I do that? And I'm about to do this language exchange teaching course, and I get the call. And then from there, everything just becomes music related. So there are some groups, some artists, like even Jay, when he was doing his projects, Four Times Infinity and other great projects, they got to a point where they were making enough money to come into an account that they can pay themselves a small salary each week. Mm-hmm. Once it gets to a point where you can cover your rent, your electricity, internet, and your food, you can just do music. But you're still living broke, but you got enough, so you can just do music. And then the goal is to build up off that and be free to do nothing but the music.
And then the art can't suffer because you're not, yeah.
Yes, but you're not balling. If you go out and spend your money, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Don't spend your music money. So even like, I believe, like groups, bigger groups, you could name a bunch of bands in this country, probably from like Haters Cody to someone else really successful. They probably just pay themselves a certain amount each week. And every few years they're like, I think we can put it up a bit. And they don't live glorious. They might spend a bit on a piece of equipment. They might do this, but they know how expensive it is to do the music they make. So you have to keep your money. Because if you're ever off the label and you don't have their help, you go fully indie, how are you going to fund it? So you keep your music money. Yeah. And if that's your only income, you got to be careful.
Unless you've got this one hit song with a royalty check coming in, then that's...
That happens. Again, Usain Bolts, the Freaks, the Ice Cubes. That happens. And you're like, cool, I can buy that house of cash in France. I can buy that apartment in New York now. And I can get my home in that nice part of the peninsula. And I'm kicking. Everything's paid off. Yeah. Cool. And I've got royalties coming. And I'm good. And now I can invest in those couple of businesses that will bring me in money. Those happen. Yes. But everybody works hard. I mean, I can't imagine how well the Hoods have done. I don't know. I've been to a couple of their houses. They look all right, but they don't sit around balling out. They work and they do the next record and the next tour and they're on it. It's not like everything's just hunky-dory. It's not the 80s where you'd make money off a record. Even the 2000s, you sold physical things. No one's selling anything. People don't even want to go to shows. Oh, I'm scared to go to the show. Why? Just go. Oh, I'm saving for the $500 ticket to see you. Oh, man. So it's a tricky one. So, yeah, a lot of artists seem to feel, and I find it interesting because a lot of artists feel that once they've got stuff up, it should just work out and they should make money. Then you got other artists who are grinding at the much lower end who are making some money because they're doing everything and understand every part and know where their money's going. I don't know how Owen Ecker's doing, but I love his work ethic. I've watched him since he started to what he's grown into and how he takes every step and thinks things through. Guys, people like that can end up making money. It just won't be the obvious.
It's not going to happen by accident. That guy plans everything, man.
And you might not even know or notice. And those people, they probably still have side hustles. Or they'll figure out a side hustle job that they enjoy. Yeah. That's like, it's not really work. I run this thing now and I do my music. So the question is, can you make an income doing what you love doing so that you have more time to do music and it's centered around music? Yes, because a lot of artists do well in music and they actually don't have a good time doing the music. It becomes so jobby to them. Yep. They're unhappy. I've never understood it, but I guess I haven't been in their positions.
Yeah. So you're at a point now that you can do everything that's music related.
Yes. But I barely have time to do music.
Okay, so that's the catch-22.
Yeah, because I have a family. If I didn't have a family, which I can't imagine, right now, me, no family, oh, I got cash, pimping. I'm lecturing, doing more lectures, I'm doing more this, I'm doing more, because that's all I have to do is me, me, me. Yeah. But when you have a family, you have to come last. You have to. You just have to, or it won't work. Yeah. Everybody has to come last. I have to come last. Alice, each child has to come last to everyone else. It's the only way it works. And if you're in a band, you kind of have to come last, but everyone has to come last for each other in the sense of looking out for what everybody needs. So if I want to come first in the group, then what everyone needs doesn't matter. You're in the family. But if I'm like, wait, let me check the calendar. No, my kid's got this on. I don't know if I can do that. Or I'll try and reshuffle it. Or that weekend, talk with the family. Hey, I've got to do, is that going to be, there's a lot to discuss. And sometimes you got to say no, or I minimize how many things I'm prepared to be involved in. So my jobs, I work at one school, helping with literacy through songwriting once a week. It's a cool job. I'm lecturing at 2 different unis, doing 2 different other classes. I do...
That are not hip-hop related?
Not hip-hop related at all. Just about performance and finishing major projects like CDs and albums and whatever they're working on, various genres. It's all the same information, really, how to finish a record. Doesn't matter what you do. What are you doing? You're getting it done? What's the steps? So trying to get them through that. So it's like 3rd year uni student stuff. And then I'll do like lyric writing workshops with schools at the Arts Centre. This is a breakdown of how I work and get by. And they're awesome, but they're random. I do slam poetry workshops with schools. But again, they're like a week here, a week there. It's not weekly. Yeah. It's decent income and stuff, but it's not consistent. And then originally when I was at the first uni, I was doing a lot of vet and VETIS student classes. So I was doing enough to just work at the uni. But then classes and things changed, and the hierarchy at the top changed, and certain job positions changed, and things got a bit odd. So hours dropped, so you start finding more stuff. And now recently, like I was saying earlier, I've been working with Arik on this program called the Grid series, which is wicked. So I kind of project manage that. I'm not a mentor or a producer or a songwriter or anything. I just oversee it and connect the right things and do a bit of it. Yep. But it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And that's for other artists coming up. So I use my knowledge and experiences. So all of it is music related, but it's a lot of work and a lot of different hats and a lot of running around and thinking processes. And that's not really my thing, but I'm having to do it and figure it out. You go from one thing, dealing with some kids who don't want to be there, trying to help them write rhymes to improve their literacy and language skills, to talking with council on some high-end stuff, to dealing with my own children, to a random workshop, to trying to write songs with Jay when we can. And so what would I do if I could? I'd just do Cool Out Son all the time. Mm-hmm. But it's just not that way.
It's just not the way of the world, yeah.
And it's wild because the new album's critically acclaimed.
Getting spins, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? We got the number 10 of the top 50 best albums of 2024 on Double J. Now, look, I know it's not Rolling Stone or Triple J, but Double J's dope.
It's for the older people of our vintage, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, I think it's from 20 up because the J's is more 12 to 20. Mm-hmm. And Doubles is anything you're about. Our vintage, people a bit younger. Because, I mean, they're playing the new Kendrick album was on there.
Yep.
So, but he appeals to from 16 to 46-year-olds.
Yep.
His music's sick. Mm-hmm. So we're getting that kind of stuff, but like number 10, it said Australia, the best hip-hop album of this year was from Melbourne.
Amazing.
But it's not like the spins equal out. You might have the best product, but it doesn't always mean you've got the best product to make money.
Yeah, but it's all about the process, man.
Yeah. So it's cool to see that. But I know, like, working with Jay, it'd be nice to be able to gig more, slightly higher rate, because the show's good enough. Mm-hmm. We can play anything in any one. And that's just something you just keep working forward and through. And I'm always thinking, like, damn, Jay, we got to find you some other projects that'll make more money than Cool Out so you can continue to enjoy doing Cool Out.
Well, that's it. I think a lot of people, they have their cash cow projects so they can follow their heart and do the other stuff, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And it's good if they can. Sometimes your job or your other things are doing a little too well, and it stops you taking that leap. And the music and the money you might have made off music, you never get to grab because you didn't leap. That happens a lot too.
For sure.
I've always wanted to take the leap and always kept myself ready for it, but I'd still would take the leap, but now I'm far more family oriented.
Yeah. And speaking of family, man, I'm going to have to take my son to swimming lessons soon as well.
Oh,
so
crap. So we're going to have to wrap it up.
We might have to get close to wrap it. We've almost done 3 hours, dude.
Jeez.
It goes quick, doesn't it?
I'm sorry.
No, it's good, man. I'm loving all of it. And I feel bad about trying to wrap it up. And I'd love you to, look, you're not that far away. I'd love you to come back and we could just talk about anything. Not even just your personal journey, just about anything, man.
Yeah, I feel like I might have talked about too much today. Some things I'm like, oh, is that going to be okay? Is that going to piss off Peril? I hope not. You know, because I never talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, reflectively, I think we all understand that. Like, I love those guys very much. And at the time, I think we're just all a bit young and in a rush and messing up. And, you know, I miss Heath. I miss all these different people and things. You know, I've been around a lot of loss and death. So
it's part of life, though, man.
It is. And like I said, I'm just grateful that I got to be part of it, part of this journey, and forever for the history of Australia, forever and ever and ever and ever. The first hip hop group to win an ARIA's 1200 techniques. You can never take it away.
You can't take that away.
Ever.
Man, do you want to let us know what else is coming up for Cool Out Sun or for M-Phazes in the, 2025? We're almost out of 2024. Just before we get to wrapping it up, man.
Yeah, 2025 is gonna be cool. We get Cool Out Sun are continuing to play shows. We've got a pretty busy year ahead already. Writing some new songs already. 1200 Techniques is actually doing a vinyl like re-release of Choose One through Rubber Records. Cool. So we might do something around that with 1200s. That'd be sick.
For sure, man.
And just staying busy, staying positive, working hard and hanging out with Sensible J. That's me.
That's you.
Yeah, man.
Living the Peninsula dream.
Yeah. Yeah, very much.
M-Phazes, I appreciate you coming in, man. I'd love to get you back soon. And it's just been a great chat, man. I really appreciate you giving me the time.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you giving the time to all these different artists and people within this space and seeing them talk and share stories. I think it's really fantastic.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
Thank you.
Bless, man. Peace.
Cheers.